Chapter 1176. Sai, Society? A bright light flashed across Lin Feng's eyes. Looking at the murderous palace, all the cultivators seemed to be demons that had returned from hell. They were emotionless. Lin Feng's heart stirred. He then said, "I'm looking for the White Clothes Society." Yu Fan's expression changed slightly, and the other man in white behind him also revealed a surprised expression. However, he concealed it extremely well, and he quickly recovered his deathly, silent expression. There wasn't the slightest fluctuation of emotion on his face. However, it was his most direct reaction at this instant that was sufficient to explain everything. Lin Feng completely understood. Thinking about it, the White Clothes Society should be a branch of the Tsai Society. Everything that happened in the land of divine remains was still clearly in his mind. Although the White Clothes Society failed to assassinate him, it did not mean that he had forgotten about it. It was just that he did not take it to heart. Compared to the hatred of the ancient race, the hatred of the White Clothes Society was negligible. It was like being stared at by a mosquito. However, now that he had come here by accident, it was really fate. "What do you want?" "Just say it," said Yu Fan. Although he did not answer, he acknowledged the existence of the White Clothes Society. In fact, he had no choice but to acknowledge it. As he spoke, he tested Lin Feng's reaction. Yu Fan was unfamiliar with this young man who had appeared out of nowhere. He was also fearful. He could not sense Lin Feng's strength at all. Empty and empty. They stood face to face, but it was as if they were on two different planes. "Very strong." "Nothing," Lin Feng said indifferently. "It's just that I have some personal grudges with the White Clothes Society. I think it's time to settle them." Lin Feng smiled. However, there was a hint of recklessness and insolence in his smile. His eyes swept across the tens of thousands of experts, completely ignoring them. Even though he was surrounded by enemies, he still stood proudly like a god of war. There was no need to beat around the bush. Directly, just kill. Boom! Flames lit up the entire palace. Southern Lu Supreme Residence. "King Lu, something happened." King Han hurried over, his eyes flashing. "Oh." King Lu was slightly taken aback. He put down the teacup in his hand. Looking deeply at King Lu, King Han's chest heaved up and down. His aquiline nose twitched. "Tsai will be attacked." Lu Wang was stunned for a moment, but then he smiled. Which idiot dares to take revenge on Kai E Society? He didn't care. King Lu was already used to this kind of thing. Kai E Society was an assassin organization and had offended a lot of people. The number of people who came to seek revenge was like the number of hairs on a cow. However, Tsai Society still stood strong. It had the strength and capital to do so. No, King Lu, Tsai Society. This time, they were wiped out by someone. King Han's voice was trembling. King Lu frowned slightly. "Yu Fan isn't here?" "Yes, but he should be dead." King Han's voice was hoarse. He wasn't the only one there. Coincidentally, during a regular meeting, all the experts of the 9 branches were present. More than 10,000 experts gathered together to discuss the details of the war for the throne and prepare to take action. Who would have thought? They're all dead. Han Wang shook his head. "It can't be." King Lu was truly shocked this time. He didn't say anything for a long time. After a while, he asked who did it. "I don't know." King Han pursed his lips. "I don't know what that person's intention is. To us, is he an enemy or a friend? He chose to come at this time. Clearly, he came prepared. Coincidentally, it happened during the war for the throne. This matter is intriguing. Not only that, King Lu's expression was dark. He completely disregarded Kai E Society. This kind of behavior was no longer as simple as provoking Kai E Society. It was completely disregarding Kai E Society and declaring war on them. Who was it that had such strength and courage? "What should we do, King Lu?" King Han's expression was extremely grave. After a while, King Lu shook his head and said, "There's no need to panic. Since this matter has nothing to do with us, we can let it go. Moreover, based on the current situation, the destruction of Kai E Society in the southern region might not be a bad thing for us. At least, we will have one less opponent and one less crisis." King Han softly grunted and nodded thoughtfully. The atmosphere was slightly heavy. At this moment, whoosh! In the distance, a black figure rushed over and knelt on one knee outside the door. King Lu, someone wishes to see you. Who? King Lu was slightly startled. He says his name is Lin Feng, the black-clothed cultivator reported. Ah, what brings little brother Lin Feng here? King Lu laughed loudly as he walked forward to welcome Lin Feng. His voice was loud and clear. This was not a pretense. Instead, it was a sincere greeting. It had only been a few days, but Lin Feng had come to visit. To King Lu, who had always wanted to win over Lin Feng, this was undoubtedly great news. King Han accompanied Lin Feng with a sincere smile. Perhaps King Brown had been severely injured by Lin Feng, but that did not matter. If they could get an expert at Lin Feng's level to join their side, there would only be benefits and no disadvantages. Naturally, I wouldn't visit you without a reason. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He went straight to the point and did not beat around the bush. Lin Feng's aura was vigorous. He had just gone through a cruel battle. His eyes were bright. At this moment, every part of his body was like an unsheathed spear, revealing its sharpness. The dense killing intent combined with a blood-colored aura wrapped around his body like a layer of membrane. It was extremely horrifying. King Lu and King Han's expressions changed slightly as they took a deep breath. Looking at Lin Feng before them, it was as if they were looking at a demon who had just returned from the Azura battlefield. The horrifying killing intent made them feel suffocated. Brother Lin, little brother Lin Feng. King Lu's face was filled with shock. Oh, Lin Feng was slightly surprised. However, he also realized his current situation. His tense nerves instantly relaxed as he smiled casually. Sorry, I just fought. Had a fight? King Lu and King Han's faces twitched slightly. How could he be covered in blood from a fight? What a joke. Wait a minute. Their expressions changed abruptly. King Lu looked at Lin Feng and said in shock, Brother Lin, little brother Lin Feng, don't tell me. You brought people to wipe out the Tsai society. Brought people? Lin Feng was slightly startled. He smiled and said, No, it was just me. His voice was calm, but it made King Lu and King Han's hearts almost stop. Did they hear wrongly? One person wiped out the Tsai society, which had tens of thousands of experts. Was this for real? I have some conflicts with the White Shirt Society. Lin Feng nodded slightly and smiled faintly. Coincidentally, we bumped into each other. Let's settle the previous scores. A faint light flashed across his eyes. Thinking about the battle just now, Lin Feng felt comfortable all over. It had been a long time since he had such an enjoyable battle. He had killed to the fullest. Satisfying. Most importantly, they were all assassins. Every one of them had blood on their hands. Even if they did not do it for themselves, they did it for the people. As saints, they actually did such a thing. They deserved to be killed. Since he wanted to do something for the human world, then first, he should get rid of these vermin one by one. There was no need to be merciful. Murderous intent flashed across his eyes, making King Lu and King Han come back to their senses. They knew Yu Fan's strength very well. Although he was only an advanced saint, his strength was comparable to a peak saint. As an assassin, his strongest point was his combat strength. His true strength was on par with King Han's. And with him leading the 10 saints to unleash their full strength, it was even more unimaginable. Others might not know, but King Lu knew very well that he and King Han could not resist at all. They did not even have a 10% chance of winning. Moreover, there were tens of thousands of Star Sector level experts. This formation was extremely terrifying. But Lin Feng in front of him, thinking of this, King Lu felt his hair stand on end. Cough, cough. King Lu coughed dryly and quickly changed the topic. By the way, Brother Lin, why are you looking for me? Lin Feng nodded, his eyes bright. To be honest, I want to ask King Lu for a favor. Oh. King Lu was slightly startled. Peach Garden, the sacred ground of the entire southern region. Any saint would be proud to be able to enter the Peach Garden because this was the cultivation ground of the ruler of the southern region, one of the 12 sacred lords of the human race, Emperor Yao. Brother Lin, Thank goodness you came to me to lead the way. King Lu smiled and said, those in-name disciples, second-generation disciples and above, only have the right to enter, but not to bring you in. Even if I could bring you here, I'm afraid you would be rejected. Lin Feng smiled slightly. He could feel that King Lu was trying to get on his good side. It was not a bad thing. King Lu paused and suddenly remembered what Lin Feng had said. His expression changed slightly. An unimaginable thought popped up in his mind. What would Lin Feng do if he was really rejected at the door? Thinking of this, King Lu could not help but break out in cold sweat. Given Lin Feng's personality, he would probably do the same as Kai E-Association and force his way in. Fortunately, I did not offend him, King Lu thought to himself. At this moment, if he still did not know Lin Feng's strength, he would not be the second senior brother. Sitting in his position, he had seen all kinds of martial artists. Lin Feng's abnormal strength was far beyond his imagination. It was better to be friends with such a person. King Lu thought to himself that he was lucky. He knew that his relationship with Lin Feng was not bad. It's right in front. King Lu pointed at the swirling fog in front of them. This was originally the place where Master cultivated in seclusion. After eldest senior brother succeeded the throne, he officially moved in here. At this point, King Lu was slightly startled. There was already someone waiting in front of them, and he was very familiar with that person. King Yan, eldest senior brother, is already waiting for you. Lin Feng. King Yan's eyes burned as he looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded slowly and turned to look at King Lu. He smiled and said, thank you, King Lu. You can stop here. All right. King Lu smiled casually. He raised his head at King Yan as though he was demonstrating his power. Then he turned to look at Lin Feng. Come to South Lu Continent when you have time. Let's drink to our heart's content. Definitely. Lin Feng smiled. He nodded and bade farewell. Then he entered the swirling fog. Up ahead, he had already sensed an extremely powerful aura waiting not far away. The human emperor, Emperor Shun, according to Elder Heavenly Secrets, he would be an extremely important left hand in the future. Lin Feng stepped forward and breathed in the spirit chi that calmed his heart. His expression was calm as he approached that calm aura step by step. After passing through the swirling fog, everything in front of him became clear. It was as though he had passed through layers of illusions. In front of him, that lonely figure was standing with his hands behind his back. I've been waiting for you for a long time, human emperor. Shun's eyes shone. Chapter 1177. Their eyes met. Lin Feng looked at the plainly dressed man in front of him and felt a sense of calmness. There was a faint smile on his face. His ordinary face had a unique temperament, as if he was high and mighty, but also very approachable. His eyes seemed to be able to see through everything, as if they could speak. Even though this was the first time they met, they felt like old friends who had known each other for a long time. The feeling he gave was very comfortable. Emperor Shun. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Sit. Shun made a pleased gesture and said casually, You came with King Lu? Yes. Lin Feng sat down slowly. There was only a small wooden table between him and Shun. He scanned the surroundings. Surrounded by mountains and rivers, the air here was unique and fresh, just like the name Paradise. It was as if one had entered a paradise and let go of all worries and worries. Shun smiled and said, Only you, human emperor, can control my second junior brother. Control? Lin Feng was slightly startled and said, Emperor Shun, you're exaggerating. King Lu and I are friends. Shun didn't answer. He just smiled and said, Have you met the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign? Yes. A faint light flashed in Lin Feng's eyes. His meeting with the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign had cleared up his hazy thoughts. It could be said that he knew what to do next. However, how would Emperor Shun know? Lin Feng looked at Shun. Shun seemed to know what Lin Feng was thinking. He said casually, Actually, everything I do is arranged by the Saint Sovereign. I don't have any personal honor or disgrace. As long as I can save the human race and make it survive this war of the liches and demons, I will die without regrets. Lin Feng saw the determination in Shun's eyes, which was different from the calm look before. He sighed in his heart. Actually, the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign knew the current situation of the human race. Shun knew it, and he knew it too. From another perspective, Shun's words were full of uncertainty and worry about the future. Perhaps he had the determination to face death with equanimity, but the current situation was indeed not optimistic. What does the human emperor think about the current situation? Shun suddenly asked. Actually, Emperor Shun can just call me Lin Feng. I'm just an ordinary person, not a human emperor. Lin Feng said softly. According to the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign, Lin Feng would definitely become the human sovereign realm in the future and become the key to the survival of the human clan. However, right now, it was not the time yet. Being called that by Shun all the time, he felt a little uncomfortable. Human Emperor, you are too modest. Shun smiled faintly. The heavenly secret Saint Sovereign would never misjudge a person. Actually, Emperor Yao has been observing you for a long time. However, I didn't expect you to improve so much in just a few years. It is truly unbelievable. However, this also proves that you are indeed destined. Emperor Yao, Lin Feng was stunned. If Shun hadn't mentioned it, he really wouldn't have known. Shun nodded slowly. Although Master isn't as proficient in divination as the heavenly secret Saint Lord, he is quite knowledgeable in astrology. Master once said that since the power of cultivation comes from the starry sky, there must be a great mystery in the starry sky. Therefore, he is very interested in studying astrology. A few years ago, he said that the third war of the shamans and demons is about to begin. The two Emperor stars will be the deciding factor of the final victory. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. The heavenly secret Saint Sovereign had mentioned this before. He was one of the Emperor's stars and possessed the transcendent fate of the Emperor constellation Ursa Major. Actually, to become an emperor, one must overcome all obstacles and go through all kinds of trials and tribulations. It can be said that the more you gain, the more you have to pay. It is not easy to survive and possess great strength and power. Shun said slowly with a solemn expression. However, in the past few years, the demon clan's emperor's star has been unyielding. The more you fight, the stronger you become. Now, you're truly standing at the peak of all the stars. Archenemy, destined by the heavens, there can only be one emperor. These words were still lingering in Lin Feng's mind. When he met the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign again, although he did not mention it again, the meaning was very clear. This time, the war of the shamans and demons would not end in a draw. As the two emperors' stars bloomed, it meant that the human clan and the demon clan would fight to the death. There could only be one of the two, and the key to the human clan's victory was on him. The responsibility was very heavy, but he had to shoulder it. Whether it was for the greater good or the lesser good, he had to stand up. Looking at Shun and seeing his clear eyes, Lin Feng could not help but smile. Actually, he knew very well that Shun's words were deliberately meant for him. Whether it was to encourage him or to provoke him, he was indeed worthy of being the emperor of the human clan. Actually, Emperor Shun, you don't have to do this. Since I have promised the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign, I will not go back on my words. I will do my best. Lin Feng nodded. Shun smiled. I am overthinking. I thought that the human emperor still has doubts about this position and is hesitating. It's not like that. I just feel that I'm not qualified yet. Lin Feng's eyes brightened. He looked at Shun and said slowly, Actually, I am here because of the Saint Sovereign's advice. I am here to ask Emperor Shun for help and discuss how to contribute to the human clan. The heavenly secret Saint Sovereign had pointed out a general direction for him. However, there were many forks in the road ahead. He still needed someone to point out the maze and make every detail the best. And this person was Emperor Shun. Human Emperor, you are too modest. If I really have the power to save the human clan, I don't need to give up the throne. Shun sighed and shook his head. The heavenly secret Saint Sovereign has given me a destiny. Although I have the destiny of an emperor, I am the emperor of a prosperous time, not the king of a chaotic time. In the current situation, there needs to be a new emperor with great courage to lead the human clan. Only then will the human clan have a chance to survive. That person is you, Lin Feng. Shun's eyes were like torches as he said, become the new emperor of the human clan. Use your method to save the human clan. The first thing to do now is to make the position of the human emperor official. Fight for the throne and take control of the entire southern region. His voice was distant and long, gently echoing in this empty land. Lin Feng and Shun looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with determination and determination. They reached out and bumped their fists, smiling slightly. No words were needed to express everything. Fight for the throne. After leaving the peach blossom, Lin Feng's eyes were still bright. Just as Shun had said, this was a crucial opportunity for him to take control of the entire southern region. Just like the new demon clan emperor who had won the fight for the throne, he had used his absolute strength to suppress all opposition. The strong were respected. Everything was decided with one's fists. Whoever was stronger would have status and power. It would decide one's fate. King Yin, King Ju, and King Lu. The three of them are on par with each other. According to Shun, the three of them will definitely enter the final battle of the fight for the throne. However, they're not as strong as me. As for the other saints, there's no need to talk about them. Lin Feng's expression was calm. He had a deep understanding of his own strength. Not to mention the southern region. Even in the entire human world, he could defeat all the saints. It could be said that he was almost invincible below the Saint Lord level. The witch race and ancient race did not know. However, the two races obviously would not participate in the fight for the throne. The only thing he had to face was the Holy Lord of the human demon. Humph! Lin Feng sighed lightly and shook his head slightly. He frowned slightly. He did not expect that he would not be able to avoid this demon. According to Shun, the Holy Lord of the human demon was an old monster who had survived the Second Great War. His strength was unpredictable. Just the strength of a Saint Lord alone was not something he could resist. If not for Shui Yumei, he would have been killed in the Vermilion Bird Realm. The most troublesome thing now was that there was not much time left before the start of the fight for the throne. To be precise, it should be the start of the Third Great War. Time was getting closer and closer. He could almost hear the bell ringing. The first step to becoming the human emperor was also a necessary step. First, he had to be legitimate. We will cross the bridge when we get there. Anyway, I have to make a trip to the ancient race first. Maybe, by the time I return, I will have a plan. A faint smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. His expression was calm. He did not know why, but even with such a heavy burden, his heart was still strangely calm. The greater the pressure, the greater the responsibility, the more he could unleash his strength. How many times had he experienced such a situation? He is the future human emperor? King Yin was stunned. Yes. Shun's expression was calm but firm. Just as the heavenly secret Saint Lord said, this child will decide the fate of the human race. King Yan's expression kept changing. He found it hard to accept. If it was his eldest senior brother, Shun, he would not care. However, Lin Feng, a new martial artist who had just emerged from the Vermilion Bird continent under his control, was going to become the human emperor. And he, King Yin, had to listen to his orders. Thinking of this, King Yan's heart was in a mess. His expression turned ugly. He was very unhappy. I know you are not convinced. Shun looked at King Yin. However, the human race is in a state of disunity. We must unite. There is no need to mention King Lu. King Ju also has his own plans. There are also other forces with complicated thoughts. Now that the southern region is in chaos, we must stand firm. King Yin raised his hand to interrupt him. Eldest senior brother, you don't have to persuade me. With a proud expression, King Yan's eyes were burning. If you want me to be convinced, it's simple. If he can defeat me one-on-one, I, King Yin, will be respectful to him and follow his lead. If not, King Yin looked at Shun and his expression softened. Eldest senior brother, please don't blame me. Shun smiled. Of course, only with absolute strength could one make others submit to him. Shun knew King Yan's temperament. He was resolute and resolute. He meant what he said. If senior brother has nothing else, I will take my leave first. King Yin cupped his hands and said, "Okay, go." Shun clasped his hands behind his back and nodded slightly. He watched King Yin leave. Then, he let out a sigh of relief. He turned around and slowly walked to the lakeside. Looking at the rippling surface of the lake, his eyes were clear but worried. It was because he knew very well that this was just the beginning. What the human race was going to face was a true calamity of life and death. 9 deaths, 1 life. We can only fight. Shun's eyes were bright. He murmured faintly. His right hand drew a streak of light. An exquisite brocade pouch was blown by the breeze and slowly fell into the lake. Chapter 1178. Northern Region. Bang! The teacup in his hand fell to the ground. Zhuo opened his mouth and didn't close it for a long time. Something that could make the strongest saint in the northern region and even the human world so shocked was obviously not an ordinary thing. Zhuo was not only the leader of the 8 Regions Alliance and the strongest in the northern region, but also had a powerful identity in the underground forces. The Tsai Association, the president. Their forces spread across the 9 regions of the human world. The Tsai Association was not only the leader of the underground forces in the southern region, but also had decisive power in other human regions. In the northern region, they even had connections with both the good and the bad. This was also the reason why King Lu didn't stop the Tsai Association from doing whatever they wanted in the southern region. He couldn't afford to offend them. Annihilated, Zhuo murmured with a look of disbelief. Yes. The man in black kneeling on one knee lowered his head and didn't dare to say more, for fear of angering Zhuo. Bang! Zhuo slammed the table and stood up. His eyes were ferocious, and his anger instantly turned into anger. He roared like a lion. Who did it? The man in black hesitated slightly and whispered, "It's a newly promoted saint called Lin Feng." Lin Feng? Zhuo frowned. He had never heard of this name. Have you investigated it? Where does he belong to? How did he plan this operation? How did the whole process go? Tell me everything in detail. Zhuo gritted his teeth. After all, he was ambitious and ruthless, so he quickly calmed down. Why aren't you talking? Zhuo glanced at the man in black coldly. Don't tell me you haven't investigated it? With a deep threat in his eyes, Zhuo eyes emitted a cold glint, revealing his killing intent. In an instant, the black-clothed man kept quiet out of fear and bowed his head. This subordinate has already said that it was done by a newly advanced martial artist, Lin Feng. Nonsense, Zhuo coldly reprimanded. I want to know the details. This. The man in black felt the killing intent and broke out in a cold sweat. Commander, no one saw the details. There were no survivors in the entire southern region. All of them were killed. Zhuo ferocious face was a little surprised. His frown deepened. All of them were killed. Those were tens of thousands of killers carefully trained by the Tsai Association. There were many enemies? How many saints are there? Zhuo said in a deep voice, Does this matter have anything to do with the king of Lu, King Yin, and the other kings of the 9 provinces? Did they help in secret? The black-clothed man's face was aghast. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Reporting to Commander, there is no one else. There is only Lin Feng. This time, Zhuo really understood. His pupils almost popped out of their sockets. What did you say? You single-handedly annihilated over 10,000 experts from the southern region of Tsai society? Yes, Commander. The black-robed youth was trembling with fear. Incomparably shocking. It made Zhuo entire body feel cold, and he felt a deep chill in the depths of his heart. One person, just one person had exterminated the southern region headquarters of Tsai society. Zhuo was so shocked that it was difficult for him to calm down. However, his anger had already disappeared without a trace and was replaced by deep shock. Who is this Lin Feng? How could he possess such power? This is the information about Lin Feng. The black-clothed man respectfully handed over a stack of papers in fear. Zhuo took it with an ashen face and a dignified face. He opened the information and looked at it word by word, line by line, with his brows tightly knitted. After a long time, leave. Zwabuffon waved his hand. His voice was slightly hoarse and weak. Yes, Commander. The black-clothed man secretly wiped his sweat. Receiving the order was like receiving amnesty. He hurriedly retreated in a panic, for fear that Zwabuffon would change his mind. However, how could Zwabuffon have the mind to pay attention to him now? Now, all his thoughts were on Lin Feng. Bang! Closing the information, Zwabuffon's face was pale, and he stood up abruptly. This Lin Feng is really too dangerous. This matter must be reported to the Sacred Lord. I'm afraid it's difficult to deal with it alone. With a deep gaze, Zwabuffon made up his mind. Then, he turned into a gust of wind and left. Lin Feng's strength was far beyond his imagination. It was not something he could do. In the Tsai society, although Zwabuffon commanded the overall situation and decided everything, in fact, he was not the real ruler of the Tsai society. Behind him, there was the existence of the king, who supported the Tsai society like a pillar, making Emperor Yao and the other sacred lords wary of him. The fate of the Tsai society had long been decided. It was not that they did not want revenge, but that the time had not come. When the existence of a force was based on the sacrifice and fulfillment of others, then its destruction was only a matter of time. Especially for such an assassin organization, they were offending people almost every minute and second. Perhaps the Tsai society had a big backer behind them, but there was always a mountain higher than the one before. Even if Lin Feng did not take action today, sooner or later, other forces would take action. The annihilation of the largest underground force in the southern region, the colorful closed society, was merely an inexplicable fire to ordinary people. However, in the hearts of the various large forces and the experts of the southern region, it was like a bomb had exploded with a loud bang. Everyone was dumbstruck and overwhelmed with shock. Lin Feng. This name had spread from Shirluo Prefecture to the Vermilion Bird Continent. Now, it had been deeply imprinted in the hearts of every saint. How frightening! He had killed 10 saints by himself and almost overturned all the forces of the Tsai society in the southern region. It was simply unbelievable. Not only were all the saints killed, but even more than 80% of the Star Sector-level assassins were killed. Only those lucky assassins who had just been on a mission had escaped. It could be said that he had given the Tsai society a taste of their own medicine. He had given the Tsai society an unforgettable shame. And now, Lin Feng. However, he acted as if nothing had happened and was going to visit someone. The former president of the Zhuke, Chao Refiners Union, Wang Shi, the king's residence, one of the 3 major blacksmith families in the Vermilion Bird Continent. They were as famous as the Nangong family and the Ouyang clan. In the blacksmith competition in the Vermilion Bird Continent, the 3 major families basically took first, second, and third place. For example, this year, Lady Nangong, Master Ouyang, and Wang Bo were the most outstanding blacksmiths in the 3 major families. Please inform them that I'm looking for Master Wang Shi, Lin Feng said with a smile. He couldn't just barge in. He didn't have any grudges with the Wang family. Besides, he was here to visit and ask for help. Last time, he had heard from Lady Nangong that the former president, Wang Shi, might know the language of the universe overlords, so he wanted to visit him to solve the secret of the parchment. Now, he could fulfill his wish. Before going to the ancients, he had one last wish. Who are you? Do you think the Grand Elder is someone you can meet just because you want to? The gatekeeper of the Wang family said proudly. You're here to learn from him again, right? The other gatekeeper said with a smile. Lin Feng smiled indifferently. He didn't take it to heart. With his identity, he naturally wouldn't bicker with them. He casually took out the vice president's token from the Union of Artificers and threw it over. Tell the president that Lin Feng wants to see him for something important. The 2 gatekeepers took the token and looked at the seal that represented his identity. Their faces immediately turned green. Then, when they heard the name Lin Feng, they were scared out of their wits and their bodies trembled. The news of Lin Feng annihilating the Tsai society in the Nanlu continent had just spread like wildfire. Azura, executioner, killing god. Lin Feng's nickname was too many to count. Who wouldn't be afraid of him? Yes, yes, I'll go right away. Senior, please come in. The two of them changed their attitudes in an instant. However, their attitude changed faster than flipping a book. One of them ran away as if he had grown a pair of hairy legs. The other clansman who didn't get the token trembled all over. He put on a flattering look and kept nodding and bowing. They were horrified, afraid that Lin Feng would kill them in a fit of rage. If that happened, they would die in vain. Lin Feng smiled and followed the clansman into the king's mansion. He had seen this kind of situation many times before. In the hall, the members of the king's mansion stood at the side, trembling with fear as they served Lin Feng. Their eyes were filled with fear as if a creditor had come knocking on their door. Lin Feng sat down and waited patiently. Looking around, the hall was quite stylish. Stone sculptures were placed everywhere. The jade floor was bright and transparent, symbolizing status and wealth. The air was filled with the scorching aura of fire elements. The atmosphere of a blacksmith could be felt everywhere. The geographical environment was excellent. Soon, loud laughter was heard. Lin Feng smiled and stood up. In the distance, Wang Shi, dressed in a loose robe, came over with a relaxed face. Compared to the other people who were cautious, Wang Shi seemed to be very relaxed. As soon as he entered the door, his eyes were bright, and he laughed. Long time no see, little brother. President, how have you been? Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Although they didn't know each other well, he had a good impression of the former president. According to Lady Nangong, he was the one who recommended him to be the vice president. Since I don't have to worry about the alliance, I feel a lot more free. Wang Shi smiled and shook hands with Lin Feng. He looked around and nodded. You can all leave. Without my permission, no one is allowed to come in. Yes, Grand Elder. The members of the Wang family bowed. As if they had been pardoned, they all smiled and let out a sigh of relief. They quickly left. In an instant, the whole hall quieted down. Brother Lin is really famous. Wang Shi looked at the panicked and relieved expressions of the people and smiled. Why? You came all the way here to see me. It's not as simple as just visiting an old man, right? He raised his eyebrows. President, you must be joking. Lin Feng smiled and said, Please forgive me for being straightforward. I wonder if President can read the words Masters of the Starry Sky? Oh, Wang Shi's eyes lit up. I know a little. Sure enough, Lin Feng was delighted. With a light flash in his hand, he took out a piece of parchment and handed it over. President, please take a look. Wang Shi nodded. The smile on his face instantly turned serious. He took the parchment and looked at the words on it. His eyes lit up. In an instant, his complexion changed drastically. His hands that were holding the parchment trembled violently. His face revealed an expression of extreme shock. He turned his head abruptly. Where did you get this? Chapter 1179. Lin Feng noticed the change in Wang Shi's expression. What was recorded on the parchment was obviously extraordinary for it to make the president of the Union of Artificers lose his composure. I found it by chance in the Sparrow King prison. Lin Feng answered without hiding anything. It was a despicable act to hide something from others when one had a favor to ask. Treasures belonged to those who were fated to obtain them. If Wang Shi was fated to obtain them, he would be happy for him. However, with his strength, the chances of him entering the third level of the Sparrow King prison were not high. Sparrow King prison. Wang Shi's eyes lit up as he pondered. He then looked at the parchment, browsed it up and down, and nodded slowly. No wonder. His expression was extremely serious. When Lin Feng saw this, he was even more curious. He didn't know what was written on the parchment that could make the experienced President Wang Shi react in such a way. Although he was curious, Lin Feng did not disturb him. He just stood there quietly as a form of respect. There was no need to rush. When the president finished reading it, he would tell him everything. He skimmed through it once and then browsed through it again. As if he was afraid of reading it wrongly, Wang Shi pointed at the parchment and read it word by word. From time to time, he would murmur softly, Time passed very slowly. The main hall was silent. Only Wang Shi's serious murmur could be heard. He spoke some unknown words. These were the words of a starry sky expert. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He vaguely understood. What was recorded on the parchment was probably not from the fighting spirit world. It was no wonder that the experienced president was so shocked. After a long time, phew, Wang Shi exhaled deeply and shook his head. I learn a lot. I really learn a lot. I originally thought that I had already immersed myself in the art of artifact forging. In the entire human world, there were not many people who were more knowledgeable than me. Who would have thought that we were just frogs at the bottom of a well? Wang Shi laughed self-deprecatingly and sighed. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Just from a few words, he could already understand a lot. The path of refining. What was written on the parchment in the language of the starry sky experts had a lot to do with refining. Wang Shi turned to look at Lin Feng and smiled. Sorry to keep you waiting. Don't worry. Lin Feng smiled. Wang Shi's eyes flashed and he nodded. But this old man can guarantee that your wait will be worth it. His eyes deeply glanced at the parchment and he let out a long breath. Wang Shi's expression was serious and his eyes sparkled. You've picked up a treasure, Lin Feng. What is recorded on this is the manufacturing method for the astral treasure chi. Wang Shi's every word was a gem. Astral treasure? What? Lin Feng was a little stunned. However, he did not expect that it would be this answer. He had thought that it was some kind of special refining path, but it was actually a manufacturing method. In short, wasn't it a refining guidebook? Don't frown. Wang Shi smiled. You can't be thinking that this is a refining guidebook, right? Wang Shi scratched his head and said, speaking of which, it is actually a refining guidebook, but looking at Lin Feng, Wang Shi's eyes lit up. This is a heaven-rank refining guidebook. The astral treasure chi is a heaven-rank treasure. Lin Feng was stunned. In fact, there were very few things that could move his heart. However, from what Wang Shi said just now, he was indeed moved. A heaven-rank refining guidebook, a heaven-rank astral treasure chi. Did he hear wrong? That was a heaven rank. A refiner could actually create a heaven rank astral treasure. This was unheard of. I always thought that heaven rank was an existence exclusive to innate treasures, but this thinking was obviously narrow-minded. Wang Shi's eyes flashed. Since there are heaven rank innate treasures, why can't there be heaven rank acquired treasures? In fact, we have always overlooked a problem, and that is, Wang Shi looked at Lin Feng and said, outstanding refiners are basically all at the star domain level. However, according to what is written here, the most basic requirement to refine chi is that one's strength must be at the saint level or above. Otherwise, it is simply impossible to refine it. And this is merely the simplest and most basic requirement. The refining techniques, methods, and details recorded here are already far beyond the limits of the Douling world's refiners. With a self-deprecating smile, Wang Shi said, perhaps it is because my own strength is not enough. However, it has indeed opened this old man's eyes. A saint-level refiner, perfectly compatible with him. Lin Feng's mind was in turmoil, and he was pleasantly surprised. In reality, after seizing the crown of the Weapon Refinement Master competition, he actually no longer desired to be a Weapon Refinement Master, because with his current weapon refinement strength and fire control ability, it was sufficient to complete the refinement of any astral treasure or astral tool without any difficulty. In fact, the strongest astral treasure or astral weapon he could refine was Earth Rank 9th layer. To him, other than exchanging them for money, what else could they be used for? He did not lack money at all, but Heaven Rank was a domain that he had never touched. Not to mention that there were no Heaven Rank acquired astral treasures. Even Heaven Rank innate treasures were only legends. He had never even seen one before. Legend had it that Heaven Rank treasures possessed great strength, and the only one he knew was the 100 Falls. This special innate treasure with suppressive abilities was truly astonishing. This thing is useless in the hands of others, but in the hands of a refiner, it is a priceless treasure. Just some of the knowledge and refining techniques on it are enough for a refiner to benefit for a lifetime. Wang sure smiled. At least I know which direction to go in refining techniques, and which details to cultivate to increase my strength. The path of refining is broad and profound, star domain level. Wang sure shook his head. In fact, it is not mainstream at all. In the doling world, refining is too simple. Wang sure sighed, as if he was deeply regretful. He slowly looked at Lin Feng. But Lin Feng, you are different. With your strength, you can completely refine the heaven-rank astral treasure Qi. Eyes shining, Wang sure clenched his fist. If this old man can see the refinement of a heaven-rank astral treasure in this lifetime, I will truly die without regrets. His heart was surging. Lin Feng's eyes were burning, and he felt his blood boiling. Refining a heaven-rank astral treasure with his own hands, this was so exciting, so exciting. Just thinking about it made him look forward to it. I wonder if it is convenient for President to translate one for me? Lin Feng asked. Of course, no problem. Wang sure smiled. This is my honor, but... Looking at the words on the parchment, Wang sure pursed his lips and frowned. Although this old man has studied the starry sky language, I do not dare to be 100% sure. I still need to think about it carefully. Lin Feng nodded, but he understood. Strictly speaking, this was a refining guide after all. In refining, a single mistake could lead to a complete failure. Not even the slightest flaw could be tolerated. Wang Shu's caution was very correct. No rush. President can take your time to study it. I will come back another day. Lin Feng smiled. Brother Lin is really broad-minded. You are actually willing to part with such a priceless treasure. Wang Shu's eyes sparkled. He patted his chest and said, just based on this trust, this old man will perfectly translate this whole refining method. Brother Lin, you can be at ease. This old man absolutely will not leak this matter to a second person. Then I will have to trouble President. Lin Feng nodded. Junior is endlessly grateful. Haha, what are you saying? Wang Shu suddenly said. However, this old man has a wish. I hope Brother Lin can fulfill it. President, there is no harm in speaking. Lin Feng said softly. Wang Shu's expression was serious. He looked straight ahead. Although it is a bit abrupt, this old man sincerely requests. If one day Brother Lin refines the astral treasure, this old man hopes to be able to observe and learn from the side, to personally witness the birth of a miracle. Lin Feng heard this and laughed. A small matter. President can be at ease. Brother Lin is indeed a straightforward person. Wang Shu's eyes sparkled. This old man will definitely translate it completely in 1 month, 3 months at most. Softly muttering, Wang Shu seemed to have thought of something. He said, Brother Lin, if Brother Lin has nothing important to do, there is no harm in temporarily staying for a day. This old man will first translate the materials needed to refine Ho. This is good. Lin Feng smiled. Materials were very crucial. Refining methods and techniques could be learned, but materials were essential. And the materials needed to refine a heaven-ranked treasure were absolutely not ordinary. Searching for them could not be done in a short time. There was a buffer period, so the chances of finding them were a bit higher. Living in the Wang mansion, despite Wang Shu's enthusiasm, Lin Feng tactfully declined his invitation. It was only 1 day. There was no need to be so extravagant. Besides, he did not want to cause more trouble, because this really was, Miss Wang is too polite. Just arrange a quiet room for me. I want to cultivate in seclusion for a day. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, Lin Feng felt rather helpless. Indeed, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. He still fell for it. Even a blind person could see Wang Shu's behavior. Since the banquet did not work, he actually sent his granddaughter to entertain him. What great face! Wang Xining's voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Her beautiful eyes moved slightly. Does Lindigo really not need servants? No. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Sorry to trouble you, Miss Wang. Wang Xining was slightly startled. She suddenly smiled sweetly. No need to be polite. Lindigo is really easy to approach. He is not at all as cold-blooded and heartless as the outside world says, like a reincarnated Azura. Is that so? Lin Feng smiled. Inger feels that Lindigo is a real man. Wang Xining pouted and snorted lightly. He is not like those foppish young masters who only know how to show off their family background and have some mediocre martial arts skills. A real expert will not show it, just like Lindigo. Also, Lin Feng felt rather helpless as he listened to her voice that was like an Oriole's. This little girl seemed to be very familiar with everyone. She did not treat him as an outsider at all, chattering nonstop. But what could he do? Fortunately, it was only one day. In fact, Lin Feng did not appear again after entering the room, until Wang Shi personally came to visit. These are the materials. Wang Shi handed over a list in his hand. Sorry to trouble you, President. Lin Feng took the list and casually glanced through it. He nodded thoughtfully. There were many materials that he had not even heard of. However, since Wang Shi could translate them, there must be he could slowly think of a way. Lin Feng was suddenly stunned when his gaze landed on the material at the top. By the way, Brother Lin. Wang Shi raised his eyebrows. What do you think of Xining? They were getting to the point. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Smack! He instantly rolled up the list and put it away. He looked at Wang Shi and smiled. She is beautiful and intelligent. Then, I will have to trouble you to translate the rest, President. I still have important matters to attend to. Sorry, I will take my leave first. With that, he cupped his hands. Before Wang Shi could react, Lin Feng immediately slipped away. Wang Shi, who had regained his senses, could not help but laugh. Chapter 1180. Rushing out of the mansion, Lin Feng finally let out a sigh of relief. This kind of attentiveness was indeed unbearable for him. Not to mention that he already had 3 wives. Just Wang Xining's age was too inappropriate. He had just turned 14 years old and was like a budding flower. Only Wang Shi could think of such a thing. He felt rather helpless, but this kind of thing could not be pushed away, nor could he not push it away. An escape was the most straightforward option. 14 years old. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. About the same as the first time I met Shi Jixin. He pondered in his heart, but seeing Wang Xining, he could not help but think of the doll-like Shi Jixin back then. Now, she had already grown up. Currently, she was cultivating with Jin Ji and Thousand Love Emperor in the Land of Miracles. She would not come out until 3 years had passed. I wonder how their cultivation is going. Are they about to break through to Saint level? Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. With Shi Jixin and Jin Ji's aptitude, breaking through to Saint level should not be difficult, but Thousand Love Emperor was even more relaxed. She should have broken through to Saint level. I wonder when she will come out. He slightly smiled. He and Thousand Love Emperor could be considered to have become friends after fighting. They became bosom buddies in the 3rd level of the Sparrow King prison. This parchment was something she had given him. Astral treasure Qi. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. He opened the list again. There were more than 100 kinds of materials on it, far better than ordinary astral treasures. Moreover, the price was more than 10 million times. Lin Feng glanced through all. Wang Shi not only wrote down the full name, but also the weight. And the most eye-catching was the first material he saw just now. Heavenly Crystal. 7-star crystal, the main material to refine Qi. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. He browsed through Wang Shi's notes and smiled. He might not have other 7-star crystals, but he had a considerable amount of heavenly crystal. When he entered the Netherworld ship that day, there was a large piece of heavenly crystal wall. Even though it was closed and Toto was in deep slumber, he still had quite a lot of Tianya crystal powder. Even though it wasn't a lot, it was more than enough. It really is a treasure that can be refined into a heaven stage. The main material needed is actually a 7-star crystal. Lin Feng sighed slightly. Ordinary crystals were divided into 9 grades to the 1st grade, and high-grade crystals were divided into 1 to 7 stars, high, middle, and low grades. Among them, refining mortal rank acquired treasures would require 1 to 3 stars, while refining earth rank acquired treasures would require 4 to 6 stars. 7 stars was known as a legendary existence. There's a second main ingredient, the extreme fire silkworm. Lin Feng frowned slightly, unable to understand. Hearing the name, it apparently should be a demon beast or strange beast type, but if this was not refining an astral treasure, what did it have to do with demon beasts and strange beasts? Slightly stunned, Lin Feng was puzzled. Most importantly, he had never heard of this name before, so he had no idea what it was. But it was clear that one of the main materials alongside the Tianya crystal was definitely not ordinary. There's a third main ingredient, the divine beast blood essence. Lin Feng scratched his head. It doesn't say any divine beast, so it should be fine. But where's the blood essence, and how do I get it? Confused, Lin Feng sighed lightly. Fortunately, there are only 3 main ingredients, or else it would really be fatal. He smiled helplessly. There were 3 main ingredients, each rarer than the last. If he did not have the Tianya crystal, he really did not know where to find it. 7-star crystal was quite rare, and it could not be found on the market. In fact, precious 6-star crystal was almost extinct in the major chambers of commerce and auction houses. It was very difficult to find. Returning to the Union of Artificers, Lin Feng did not return to Shirluo County, but there was no need for that. The Qin Chamber of Commerce had basically finished all the arrangements, and the clan was thriving. Under the leadership of his adoptive father and the care of the county city lord, Wang Mo, there would not be any major problems. Now that the matter was settled, it was about time for him to set off. After seeing Lin Yuma, Lin Feng immediately found Lady Nangong. These materials. Lady Nangong looked at the list in her hand, her eyes shining. What do you want to refine? If I say it's a heaven-rank astral treasure, would President believe me? Lin Feng smiled gently. Lady Nangong's gaze was like a torch as she stared at Lin Feng. I believe you. Looking at Lin Feng, she said slowly, I won't be surprised if anything happens to you. Looking at the list again, Lady Nangong said softly, you need more than 100 materials for star, 5-star, and 6-star metal ores, and you need the Tianya crystal as the main ingredient. Actually, I guessed it. Lin Feng looked at Lady Nangong, his heart filled with admiration. Very powerful. Compared to him who relied on his innate talent to refine, Lady Nangong was truly immersed in the path of refining. In his opinion, in terms of refining, perhaps even Wang Shi and President were inferior. I didn't think there really would be a heaven-rank acquired treasure. Lady Nangong's eyes twinkled as she looked at Lin Feng. Actually, 2 years ago, I thought of this possibility. I flipped through many ancient books to search for information, and I found many clues, but Lady Nangong shook her head. My martial talent is limited. Even if I know the possibility of refining a heaven-rank artifact, I'm afraid I can't do it. Looking at Lin Feng, Lady Nangong was quite gratified. I didn't think you, Lin Feng, would be 1 step ahead of me. Lin Feng calmly said, Lady Nangong must be joking. I happened to obtain a heaven-rank astral treasure refining method, so I had this idea. So that's how it is. Lady Nangong suddenly nodded, her eyes slightly shining. Lin Feng, are you sure you can refine it? Her chest rose and fell. Even if Lady Nangong was always calm and collected, she still felt excited. As a weapon refinement master, who didn't want to see the birth of a heaven-rank artifact? Furthermore, it was to be refined. I don't know. Lin Feng shrugged and said with a faint smile, I'll give it a try for the time being, but the important thing right now is that these materials aren't easy to find. Lady Nangong nodded. Her gaze once again swept over the materials on the list. She pursed her lips and softly muttered, How about this? For the materials below 7-star, leave it to the Union of Artificers to help you find them. Although some materials are rare, they shouldn't be a big problem. But these 3 kinds of main materials, slightly wrinkling her brows, Lady Nangong softly muttered, not a single one can be easily obtained. Heavenly crystals are very rare. If the quantity is small, then there's a possibility, but I have heavenly crystals. Lin Feng softly said, the main ones are the extreme fire silkworm and divine beast essence blood. I don't know how to obtain them. Lady Nangong was slightly startled. She gazed at Lin Feng with a gaze that carried some curiosity, yet she did not pursue the matter. She only slightly nodded. Then the difficulty is slightly reduced. Only the extreme fire silkworm and divine beast essence blood remain. Among them, divine beast essence blood should not be limited to any divine beast. However, only a saint-level divine beast would have essence blood, so to obtain it is not easy. Wait, Lin Feng hastily asked. May I ask, President, what is essence blood? Lady Nangong smiled. Do you know how a divine beast cultivates and advances in rank? Lin Feng nodded. By absorbing the qi of heaven and earth and lighting up the 5 destined star plates, a divine beast will become a saint-level divine beast. Lighting up one of the 2 destined star plates, yin and yang, will allow it to become a saint-level divine beast. If both destined star plates are lit up, it will completely transform and become a starry sky elite. He might not be clear about other things, but as the owner of the Phoenix natal plate, he could not be clearer about the divine beast cultivation path. Lady Nangong nodded. The production of essence blood is related to the destined star plates and destined star plates. Lighting up all 5 destined star plates, a divine beast will become a divine beast. At this time, a drop of essence blood will be condensed in the natal plate, just like the soul of a human, containing the power of the stars. So that's how it is. Lin Feng's eyes twinkled, and he immediately understood. It was similar to the inner core of a mutated beast. In other words, if he wanted to obtain the essence blood of a divine beast, he must kill a saint-level divine beast. Lin Feng smiled casually. He could not help but think of the past, when he needed to hunt divine beasts to increase his strength. At that time, he did not have the strength to do so. However, with his current strength, killing a divine beast was not too difficult. The key was to find the divine beast. Although it was not easy, at least he knew what to do. What was left was how to complete it. Then what is the extreme fire silkworm? Lin Feng asked again. Lady Nangong answered. The extreme fire silkworm is a very special kind of mutated beast. Strictly speaking, it is actually a kind of spiritual creature. It lives in the hottest region of the Douling world. It is not rare to say that it is rare, but it is almost impossible to find in the human world. The hottest region of the Douling world. Impossible to find in the human world? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. You mean, the hottest region of the Douling world is in the depths of the wilderness. Lady Nangong's eyes were burning. It is in the territory of the sorcerer race and the ancient race. Lin Feng, I have already helped you to investigate this trip to the ancient race. The ancient Phoenix clan is located in the southern ancient region, one of the 7 ancient regions. It is one of the hottest regions of the Douling world. It is a good opportunity to find the whereabouts of the extreme fire silkworm. The southern ancient region. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The ancient Phoenix clan was located in the 7 ancient regions. This time his destination. What a coincidence. There was no reluctance or burden. After bidding farewell to Yuma and Lady Nangong, Lin Feng left the Union of Artificers and headed to the Union of Inscribers. The Union of Artificers had a teleportation point to the sorcerer race, but there was no teleportation point to the ancient race. The Union of Inscribers was backed by the ancient race, so there was a teleportation point to the ancient race. In the entire human world, only the Union of Inscribers and the Union of Star Talisman Masters had the right to enter the ancient race. The others had to enter the Boorish Desolate and search for them. To Lin Feng, not only did it take a long time, but the Boorish Desolate was so big that he had no sense of direction at all. It was not easy to find them. Thank you. Lin Feng nodded at Yin Qing. Master Yin Qing was one of the top inscribers in the Vermilion Bird Continent. He had an extremely high status in the Union of Inscribers. Don't mention it. It's not my credit. Yin Qing smiled. If you want to thank someone, thank the president. I only recommended you. Entering the ancient race. I don't have that authority. As he spoke, Yin Qing could not help but look at Liu Yibi, who was beside him, the president of the Vermilion Bird Continent's Union of Inscribers. Sorry to trouble you, President. Lin Feng smiled. You're welcome. It's just a small matter. Liu Yibi smiled and looked quite friendly. After exchanging some pleasantries, the teleportation point was activated. Lin Feng smiled and bade farewell to the two of them. In a flash of white light, he left in an instant. At this moment, the smile on Liu Yibi's face slowly disappeared, and a glint flashed across his small eyes. Chapter 1181. In the Wasteland world, in the enormous Do Ling world, the human domain only took up a very small part of it. It was almost negligible. Strength determined everything. Among the three major human races, whether it was individual strength, racial advantage, or martial talent, the human race was ranked at the bottom, an inconspicuous existence. The only thing that the humans had over the ancient race and the sorcerer race was their numbers, which were far greater than the ancient race and the sorcerer race. This was also the biggest reason why the wizard tribe kept humans alive. Even though the probability of human powerhouses advancing to star sector level, Saint, and Sage King was less than 1% of the ancient tribe and the wizard tribe, but the base number was huge. There would always be a few exceptional martial artists who broke through the tribe limit and stood at the peak of the Do Ling world. The Saint level was stronger than the Cosmic Realm level, and the Saint King level was stronger than the Saint level. Although Sage King humans could not summon the wind and rain, they still had a certain status and dignity in front of the wizard tribe and the ancient tribe. For example, they could step into the ancient tribe and the wizard tribe's territory without any obstacles. However, Saint was not qualified. Whoosh! A light flashed. Lin Feng's figure slowly appeared, his eyes burning. I didn't expect it to be so simple. Lin Feng thought. This Liu Yibi is quite easy to talk to. Originally, this would be quite troublesome. With a smile, Lin Feng stepped out of the transportation formation. When Lady Nangong gave him directions, she had said that Liu Yibi might not give her face. After all, to enter the ancient tribe's territory, a human powerhouse's strength had to reach Sage King. Strictly speaking, Liu Yibi had violated the rules by letting him in. He's really influential. Lin Feng smiled faintly. He knew in his heart that the biggest reason why this matter could go so smoothly was because of Master Yin Qing or Lady Nangong's help. After all, he and Liu Yibi had met by chance and did not have any friendship. I should thank him when I have the chance, Lin Feng said softly and then looked around. It was hot, as if being roasted by fire. The area here was filled with extremely rich fire elements. The surroundings were bright red, and even the ground seemed to be roasted. The overwhelming heat wave rushed over, and weaker martial artists could not withstand it all. Southern ancient region, as expected of one of the hottest regions in the Do Ling world. Lin Feng nodded slowly and closed his eyes. The surrounding fire elements were like happy little fairies scurrying around. To him, these flames were nothing. Even without the protection of the flames of rebirth, his body's toughness alone was enough to withstand them. The ancient race was a race that had inherited the blood of divine beasts. Therefore, they were extremely talented. In the southern ancient region, the ancient clans that inherited the fire-type divine beast resided there. The ancient Phoenix clan was one of them. I don't know where it is, Lin Feng muttered. Slowly opening his eyes, he saw a mountain range that stretched as far as the eye could see. The aboriginals were the same as the divine beasts. They loved nature and did not like to live in an area with energy civilization like the humans. To a certain extent, the aboriginals, the sorcerer tribe, and even the demon tribe were similar in this aspect. They did not pursue material life and only focused on cultivation and searching for the heavenly way. Let's look around. As long as we can find any ancient clan, it won't be difficult to find the ancient clan of Sofeng. Lin Feng nodded slowly. In an instant, he flew away. At the Vermilion Bird Continent's union of engravers. Hua! A silhouette slowly appeared. His red eyes were frightening. It was the enforcer of the ancient clan, Qitong. Greetings, enforcer. Liu Yibi cupped his hands and greeted him respectfully. Where'd he go? Qitong's expression was calm. He turned the dragon head ring that symbolized his identity on his right hand. Enforcer, he went to the southern ancient region, Lu Ibi said seriously. Chi Tong nodded slightly. The red light in his eyes flickered slightly. Did anyone else go with him? Lu Ibi frowned and shook his head. No one else. Lu Ibi bowed slightly. His eyes shone brightly. Enforcer, you have great foresight. Lin Feng did go to the southern ancient region. As soon as he left, I immediately informed you. Chi Tong said in a deep voice, well done. You will be rewarded. Ever since he received the order from the divine envoy, Chi Tong had been waiting for him in the Lin clan. However, he did not see him. In fact, not only did he inform the Inscription Master of the Alliance, but he also informed the Star Talisman Master of the Alliance. As long as Lin Feng made any strange movements and wanted to enter the ancient region to seek refuge with the ancient Feng clan, they would immediately inform him. Not only did Chi Tong embarrass himself by killing 4 of his subordinates, but he also brought shame to the ancient clan. This time, Chi Tong was personally sent by the divine envoy. Naturally, he could not afford to make any mistakes. Thank you, Enforcer. Lu Ibi was overjoyed. The Enforcer in front of him was not an ordinary person. He was an expert at the peak of the Saint Stage and had an important position in the ancient clan temple. When he said that he would be rewarded, it was definitely not an ordinary reward. Chi Tong nodded. He hesitated for a moment before asking, can you see Lin Feng's strength? This. Lu Ibi frowned slightly. I don't know. However, rumor has it that Lin Feng's strength is unfathomable. He should be at the advanced or peak of the Saint Stage. Chi Tong's eyes flickered. He did not say anything else. He still had doubts about how his 4 subordinates were killed. He knew Lei Xiong's strength very well. Lei Ba and Lei Long were 2 intermediate law enforcers, but they were still killed. This matter was obviously not simple. According to the rumors, Lin Feng killed them alone. It was really hard to believe. However, as Lu Ibi said, Lin Feng was the only one who went to the ancient Feng clan. Given Feng Chao's character, he will definitely send someone to protect this little bastard, Chi Tong said inwardly. Chi Tong said inwardly, but it's not enough to send out a Sage King. Now, it seems that the little bastard escaped with his life in the battle with Lei Xiong and the other 2, but he has no one to protect him. Therefore, he hurriedly went to the ancient Feng clan to prepare for his safety. Otherwise, why would I not go earlier or later? Why would I go now of all times? Most likely, Chi Tong's eyes flickered. He quickly deduced the whole matter. His deduction was not wrong. The ancient Feng clan did send Feng Ming over. However, Chi Tong did not expect that Feng Ming had already been killed in the battle with Lei Long. In fact, the ancient Feng clan did not know that Lin Feng was on the wanted list of the temple. Otherwise, they would not only send Feng Ming. In fact, with Chi Tong's intelligence, he could completely guess another possibility. However, he was unwilling to admit it. Whether you're a dragon or a snake, we will know after a test. If you really have the strength of a Saint King, I will give in to you. But if you don't, Chi Tong stood on top of the teleportation array and moved his fingers lightly. In an instant, a white light flashed, and he disappeared without a trace. Whoosh! Chi Tong appeared. His eyes flickered with a red light as he slowly sensed the surrounding environment. Lin Feng had left less than half an hour ago. There were usually few people here, so there were still some remnants of his aura. An ordinary warrior would not be able to sense it, but he was Chi Tong. He had the top-notch eye, Chi Huang eyes. Smack! Chi Tong's eyes lit up, and a cold smile appeared on his face. Judging from the fluctuations of the astral energy, he should be an advanced saint. As expected, the other possibility is that I am overthinking. If Lin Feng were here, he would be extremely shocked. Chi Tong had accurately guessed his strength based on the clues. It was quite terrifying. If you hide, you may have a chance of survival. But if you enter this place... Chi Tong clenched his fist, and a thick flame appeared all over his body. You will be a turtle in a jar. Only death awaits you. In an instant, swoosh. Chi Tong moved as fast as lightning. His Chi Huang eyes were shining brightly. He had absolute confidence that he could kill Lin Feng. That's it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. After traveling for half an hour, he quickly sensed many auras. 20, 50, 100. Lin Feng was slightly shocked. He sensed that there was an ancient clan in front of him. There were not many people, only a few hundred of them. However, he was not shocked by the number of people. After all, he had seen the sorcerer race before. It was normal for there to be dozens or hundreds of them. The sorcerer race and the ancient race could not be compared to the human race. What he was shocked by was the strength of the ancient race. It was quite terrifying. There are less than 300 of them, but more than half of them are Star Lords or Star Domain Saints. 3 saint-level existences. Lin Feng was shocked. Although he could not sense any sage kings, there were 3 saint-level existences. What an exaggerated ratio. This should be a small clan, Lin Feng thought to himself. The ratio of saint-level existences is more than 1%. If the ancient race's population is calculated as 1%, it was hard to estimate. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He had guessed that the ancient race was strong, but he did not expect them to be this strong. No wonder they had so few people, but they were much stronger than the human race. Quality was much more important than quantity. He could imagine that the ancient race's saint-level existences were many times stronger than the human race. The sorcerer race is even stronger. Lin Feng's eyes narrowed slightly. His estimation of the sorcerer race's strength became clearer. The more saint-level existences there were, the more saint-level existences there were. Moreover, the ancient race and the sorcerer race's aptitude was obviously higher than the human race's. No wonder the human race has always been in a weak position, Lin Feng said softly in his heart. However, seeing was believing. Now, he completely understood. Although he had only sensed one clan, he was able to tell everything. There was no need to doubt the strength of the ancient clan. In the Douling world, the strong would always be respected. Lin Feng pursed his lips. At this moment, he felt more deeply about the responsibility and pressure on him. Let's leave first. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. He did not have any good ideas. He could think about the human race in the future. For now, it was more important to find out the location of the ancient race and find out the mystery of his identity. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Moving as fast as lightning, Lin Feng quickly approached. At a glance, he could see rows of houses that looked like stone castles. Many ancient race experts also felt his aura and looked around curiously. Lin Feng smiled and slowed down. Just as he was about to dive down, suddenly, bang, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat, and his expression changed instantly. A terrifying and powerful aura came from behind at an extremely fast speed. It was suffocating. A strong murderous intent spread rapidly and covered the entire area. The terrifying aura was far stronger than any saint-level expert he had ever seen. Who was it? Lin Feng clenched his fists, and his eyes shone brightly. He could feel that the person's aura was firmly locked on him. It was obvious that he had come prepared. His target was pointed at him. Chapter 1182. He was a real expert. Lin Feng floated in the air with a stern look in his eyes. The strength of the newcomer was extraordinary. Just the pressure of his soul had aroused his fighting spirit. At this moment, 3 figures flew out from the ancient clan. They flashed rapidly with a strong aura of fire. 3 streaks of fiery red light appeared. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They were 3 red-clothed sages. They were wearing the same clothes, and their foreheads were shining with the light of star seals. 2 low-level sages and 1 mid-level sages occupied 3 directions tacitly. They were like turtles in a jar. However, they looked serious and slightly fearful. Given the ancient clan's outstanding ability to sense auras, they could sense that Lin Feng was not simple. They're here. Lin Feng's eyes flickered slightly. In fact, he did not take these 3 red-clothed sages seriously at all. Perhaps they were very strong to ordinary human sages, but to him, they were nothing. The real enemy was the terrifying one in front of him. His oppressive aura shrouded him deeply. His strength was extraordinary. Whoosh! The fire was dazzling with a red glow. In front of him, a figure slowly appeared. A pair of red eyes stared deeply at him. Fire element, Peak Sage. He was definitely one of the top existences in the human world. They looked at each other and sized each other up. Lin Feng glanced at the resolute face. Soon, his eyes landed on the dragon head ring on the red-clothed man's left hand. His expression changed slightly. Law enforcers of the ancient clan? Lin Feng was slightly shocked. He immediately understood. The first time, they sent Dian Ho alone. The second time, they sent 3 powerful experts, including high-level law enforcers. And now it was the third time. Greetings, law enforcer. The 3 red-clothed sages said in unison. They bowed respectfully. In the ancient clan, the Divine Hall had a very high status. Especially for ordinary clans, it was sacred and inviolable. Qitong's arrival was quickly recognized. Law enforcer? Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. Judging from the name, they were more powerful than the high-level law enforcers. As a matter of fact, it was not hard to guess that the lightning dragon who came to kill him the first time was the weakest. The law enforcers who came to kill him the second time were already very strong, and there were as many as 3 of them. The third time would not be worse than the second time. Most importantly, there was only one person this time. It was easy to imagine how powerful the other party was, especially Lin Feng stared at the pair of red eyes. They were standing opposite each other, and it felt like they had met their match. His eyes had never encountered such a powerful enemy before. The red eye in front of him was on the same level as his starry sky pupils and starry sky pupils. That was the feeling of a top-notch pupil. Step down. Qitong's voice was cold as he waved his hand. The 3 red-clothed saints bowed their heads and left without saying another word. With their strength, they couldn't help at all. In fact, the law enforcer didn't need their help at all. The strong had their own pride. You are Lin Feng? Qitong asked in a deep voice. Yes. Lin Feng glanced at the dragon head ring and said indifferently, You are also a member of the Divine Hall. The Divine Hall of the Ancient Tribe was famous in the Ancient Tribe, and the dragon head ring was their token. They had a very high status in the Ancient Tribe. This wasn't a secret among the saints in the human world. He had known about it long before he entered the ancient southern region. Law enforcer of the Divine Hall, Qitong. Qitong's voice was calm, but it revealed a sense of pride and confidence. Qitong didn't hide his identity at all. To Qitong, this was a kind of pride. They are your subordinates? Lin Feng asked indifferently. Although he didn't say it explicitly, if they were really sent by Qitong, he would naturally understand what he meant. Qitong's eyes changed slightly, but he didn't answer. Instead, he asked, How did they die? I killed them. Lin Feng didn't hide it and said truthfully. However, this caused Qitong's lips to curl into a cold smile. Do you think that I will believe your words and retreat in the face of difficulties? You are too naive. Qitong's eyes flashed with fiery light, shooting out like sharp arrows. Today, you will die without a doubt. Is that so? Lin Feng smiled indifferently. Let's see who will die. There was no need to explain or say anything else. Everything was a foregone conclusion. Lin Feng was very clear that today's battle was unavoidable. Although he didn't know the exact reason, the Divine Hall's intention to kill him couldn't be clearer. They had repeatedly sent experts to kill him, and they wouldn't give up until they achieved their goal. Starting from his father, this was destined to be a battle to the death. As for him, he would never give in. Misty cloud steps, Lin Feng shouted, and his astral source power instantly bloomed. There was no other possibility. He could only fight to the end. Swoosh! His speed was extremely fast, as if he had pierced through space. Under the shocked gazes of the 3 saints, Lin Feng attacked even faster than Qitong. He took the most direct first step. Fight! Mystery, sky of blazing flames, Qitong shouted. In an instant, the sky was filled with blood-red light, and extremely dense fire elements gathered from all directions. As Qitong's eyes lit up, a terrifying aura mixed with astral source power was released. Clusters of flames seemed to be endowed with life as they attacked Lin Feng. Very fast. The speed was extremely fast. It was as if Qi Tong didn't need to move at all. The flames seemed to belong to him, and his sensitivity was terrifying. Lin Feng's eyes turned cold, and the changes in space caused the misty cloud steps to erupt with extraordinary speed. However, Qi Tong seemed to have predicted his first step. All the flames surrounded him, and he felt as if he could predict the future. It was extremely uncomfortable. Even if his speed was extremely fast, even if his step was extremely decisive. But mystery, Garuda's real body. Lin Feng gritted his teeth. In an instant, a blurry figure sitting cross-legged in the flames appeared in his mind. An intense killing intent flashed, and an extremely dense aura of ruthlessness flashed. Like a mirror, the figure merged with him in an instant. Together with his sensitivity to the flames and extreme control of the flames, his body was further strengthened. Pa! Pa! His muscles expanded as if he was wearing a layer of battle armor. Qi Tong's attack was accompanied by the crimson light in his eyes as he retreated unhurriedly, widening the distance. This was the most commonly used and practical battle tactic of a heavenly spirit master. Trying to escape, Lin Feng released the flames in his hands. He ignored the pincer attack of the flames around him and rushed forward rapidly. The devouring flames, together with Garuda's real body, were used at an extremely fast speed. Like the sound of firecrackers, they forcefully broke open a path. In terms of flames, he was unafraid of those of the same level. Even if Qi Tong's astral source power was stronger than his, he had an absolute advantage in terms of the quality of his flames. Furthermore, the devouring flames were the nemesis of other flames. Oh, Qi Tong was slightly surprised. This was the first time he had seen Lin Feng's true strength. Lin Feng's words and calm expression appeared in his mind. Qi Tong's eyes glowed. This time, he was truly certain of Lin Feng's strength. What he said just now was not false. It seems like Lei Xiong and the rest really died in his hands. One exchange was enough to tell whether he was a dragon or a snake. Putting away his contempt, Qi Tong gathered his strength once more. With the strength of a peak saint, coupled with his scarlet brilliance eyes, Qi Tong was a true powerhouse who could rank in the top 3 even among the saints of the ancient races, let alone the human world. 80% of my strength is enough to kill him. Qi Tong's eyes shone brightly. That red glow was extremely demonic. Ghost fire demonic realm. Qi Tong's voice was cold. What was going on? Lin Feng was deeply shocked. Qi Tong seemed to have predicted his every step and action. It felt as if there was a pair of invisible hands controlling him. Qi Tong seemed to be standing in the clouds and looking down on everything. He had just broken through the layers of flames in the sky, but now he was in a realm of demonic flames. With the strength of his devouring flames, it was not difficult to break through, but there was no end to it. It was as if he had fallen into an endless cycle. He broke through one layer, then another, and another layer of obstacles. This human is really strong. He even made the law enforcement leader use the ghost fire demonic realm. It's a pity that he has met the law enforcement leader, who is ranked 3rd. Only death awaits him. That's right. The law enforcement leader's Qi Huang eyes are not to be trifled with. It's only a matter of time before he is killed. The 3 saints stood below and watched the battle. Their expressions were calm as they whispered to each other. They were not worried at all. In their opinion, it was too easy for the law enforcement leader, Qi Tong, to kill a mere human. Boom, boom, boom. Lin Feng's hands were burning. In the Jialuo true body state, his fire sensitivity and explosive power were both enhanced. However, facing Qi Tong, who had inherited the blood of the divine beast and was proficient in fire-type attacks, his consumption of power was within his calculations. The danger level had increased exponentially. Why? Why are my actions all within his expectations? What is going on? Lin Feng frowned and pondered as he resisted the erosion of the demonic fire. Compared to the layers of heavenly fire earlier, this demonic fire attack was even more terrifying. Layer after layer, it was like a continuous wave. Even if he charged straight ahead, he felt as if there were endless layers of flames in front of him. It was as if he had entered a maze and had lost his sense of direction. What is this? What is it? Lin Feng's expression was grave as he fell into a bitter battle. Indeed, it was as he had expected. Qi Tong was a genuine expert who was on par with him in terms of strength. If he wanted to defeat him, he had to break this stalemate and directly threaten him. This was something that any heavenly spirit master had to do. Close in. The key now was how to disrupt his rhythm and destroy this annoying feeling of control. Boom! Once again, the flames burned fiercely. Lin Feng's eyes brightened rapidly. Yes, this is the feeling. That feeling of being high above and looking down on him came from that red light. That red light was not inferior to him in the slightest. Top-tier eyes. Break it. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. 2 more chapters. Updated at midnight. Chapter 1183. A spear against a spear. Since he had found the reason, there was no need to waste any more time. No one knew better than Lin Feng how powerful the special eyes were, especially the top-tier ones. This was because the Vastar eyes and Vastar eyes already possessed heaven-defying abilities. He did not know the other abilities of Qi Tong's top-tier eyes, but he was sure of one thing. The degree of assistance it provided in battle was even greater than his own 2 eyes. Just the ability to predict the enemy's movements was already extremely terrifying, and Qi Tong had mastered this ability to the point of perfection. Perhaps there were other ways, but there was no time to think about it. In the blink of an eye, his eyes changed rapidly in his own state. After making up his mind, Lin Feng's expression turned serious. In his mind, there seemed to be a high-pitched, chirping bird flying proudly. The blood-red eyes gathered in his eyes, and at this moment, they seemed to overlap. The light in his eyes was like a crack in the sky, and an extremely dense power, accompanied by an austere aura, completely erupted. After reaching 70% Saint, this was the first time the ability bestowed by his eyes was used. Vermilion Bird Attack, 10%. Lin Feng shouted. In an instant, the soul power in his mind poured out like a tide and gathered to form a fiery red bird that seemed to fly out from his eyes. It was like an illusion, but also transparent. It did not seem to be a real power, but it was extremely terrifying. It was formless, but extremely terrifying power. This was the attack method of a true heavenly soul master, using the purest soul power to attack. It was extremely dangerous. 10% was already an extremely powerful soul bestowment. That day in the Yin residence, the furious Lin Feng had only used 1% of his power and had directly killed Yin Song along with his soul. Of course, Yin Song's strength could not be compared to Qi Tong's, but this 10% Vermilion Bird attack was enough to destroy his saint soul. This was Lin Feng's true strength. The 3 red-robed saints were shocked. They were all celestial spiritual masters, and they all cultivated the life spirit. They could feel the terrifying power of Lin Feng's soul attack. In fact, everyone in the Douling world was afraid of heavenly soul masters, but heavenly soul masters were too rare, especially saint-level heavenly soul masters. They were almost extinct. This was because a heavenly soul master's attack was too sharp. It was like a double-edged sword. The stronger the attack, the greater the damage. The repeated soul attacks were like using a piece of jade to smash against a rock. Perhaps one could win, but every time the jade was hit, the soul would be damaged to varying degrees. Heavenly soul masters were like this. But what the 3 of them didn't know was that Lin Feng's Vermilion Bird Assault didn't have any side effects. It was a completely independent attack. With the independence of the soul, even if the attack failed, even if there was a strong backlash, it would not cause any harm to the martial artist. The power of the attack would be greatly reduced, but at the same time, the degree of injury would also be greatly reduced. There was a subtle balance between the attacks of heavenly soul masters. Quick, extremely fast. The attack of a heavenly soul master was basically unavoidable, because it was a direct attack on the soul. You've got guts. Qitong's eyes were shining brightly. He had already sensed Lin Feng's attack the moment it happened. He might be able to dodge it, but soul attacks were different from physical attacks. Even if he could dodge it for a moment, he wouldn't be able to dodge it again, unless he chose to dodge and escape. But that was impossible. If Lin Feng dared to attack, he would dare to receive it. Scarlet brilliance eyes, blood brilliance. Qitong roared, and the light in his eyes shot out. An eye for an eye, an eye for an eye. If it wasn't necessary, Qitong wasn't willing to let his body become a battlefield. He might be able to gain a little advantage, but the destruction of the battlefield would be very troublesome. Even if it was just a little, it would cause great damage to his strength. Moreover, the life soul focused on offense, while the mortal soul focused on defense. Using the life soul to defend wasn't a wise decision. Qitong had absolute confidence in his scarlet brilliance eyes. This was the reason why he was ranked third among all the saints of the ancient race. Top tier, eye level 8. Boom! It was as if lightning had struck the earth. It was a clash of the purest and most extreme energies. The three red-robed saints widened their eyes and held their breaths as they watched this unforgettable battle. In the void, Lin Feng and Qitong stood in the distance. In the middle of the battlefield, a fiery red sparrow and a blood-red illusory light instantly clashed. The invisible power exploded violently with a visible force. Bang! The three red-robed saints only felt their faces turn deathly pale. Cries of alarm rang in their ears, buzzing. Their souls were severely impacted. The three of them vomited blood and staggered back. Even the ordinary Star Lords and Cosmic Realm State saints in the distance were affected. Many of the stronger ones fell to the ground while foaming at the mouth. The weaker ones were bleeding from their orifices and were severely injured. A battle between souls was definitely not ordinary. If the surroundings were already in such a state, what more could be said of the two parties involved in the battle? Qitong's face was ashen as he suffered a violent impact. He was different from Lin Feng. His scarlet brilliance attack was connected to his soul, so he suffered a great backlash. Blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth, but Qitong was confident. That was because he had completely destroyed Lin Feng's attack in the previous clash. However, Lin Feng was like a ferocious tiger that had been released from its cage, flying over at an extremely fast speed. The energy in the surrounding space fluctuated violently. Qitong widened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng, who was expressionless and didn't seem to have weakened at all. He was completely caught off guard. How was that possible? How could he not be injured at all? Qitong was shocked. He felt as if he had been stabbed with a knife. Blood kept seeping out. He had clearly defeated Lin Feng. Reaction force. Even though the vermilion bird attack had been broken, the backlash didn't increase at all. Qitong naturally didn't know that the backlash had already been borne by his clansmen. Although Lin Feng was also affected, the weak impact was like a tickle to the high-level saint-level Lin Feng. It couldn't cause him any harm at all. Just a moment passed, but to Lin Feng, it was an excellent opportunity. Illusion will-o'-the-wisp realm. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Qitong woke up faster than he had imagined, but he still couldn't get close to him. In that case, he decided to sprinkle salt on his wound. His eyes lit up and the flames in his hands formed a power that disturbed his mind. It was like a form of confusion. That was one of his ultimate moves. It was a star technique that was mixed with ocular techniques. To Qitong, such an attack wouldn't have had any effect. However, times had changed. Qitong had just recovered from the vermilion bird attack and was extremely weak. Furthermore, he was in a defenseless state. How could he not fall for it? Oh no! Qitong's expression changed. He reacted instantly. Qi Huang's eyes were resistant to such attacks, and his mental stability was even more resolute. Break! Qitong clenched his fists. But in an instant, there was a sea of flames in front of him. As a fire elemental martial artist, he could naturally sense how powerful the flames in front of him were. They were condensed with powerful fire elemental energy. The astral energy also increased the power of the flames to the extreme. Qitong's expression changed drastically. He gritted his teeth. He was already in a desperate situation. A ray of white light appeared in his hands. A round ball of light shone with a myriad of colors. Round ball explode. Qitong's expression was ferocious. He instantly detonated the ball of light. The strength of the Khanate treasure had saved his life. Rumble. The round ball of light exploded, and the shockwave spread in all directions. The aboriginals who had just been freed from Soul's attack once again suffered a blow to their bodies. To the aboriginals whose bodies were not considered strong, this kind of terrifying explosion was enough to make them suffer. Even those 3 red-clothed saints were now in tatters, their star armors dim. They cursed in their hearts, regretting that they had been too close. Now, they had been caught in the crossfire. But fortunately, they had not suffered any fatal injuries. But what about the 2 people in the center of the round ball's explosion? Blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. Qitong's chest rapidly rose and fell. Even if he was a peak saint, his body far stronger than an ordinary saint's, this kind of extreme explosion still injured him considerably. But fortunately, he was the master of the round ball. He possessed immunity to 99% of the attack, so he was not seriously injured. Otherwise, there would be great trouble. He had never used this trump card before, because this was the round ball's 3rd ability and also its strongest life-saving ability. In case it was used, it would explode and be destroyed. That was a white-grade Earth rank astral treasure. Now, it had been destroyed. Lin Feng, I want you to fall into the 18 layers of hell. Qitong's expression was as malevolent as a devil's. He gnashed his teeth. At this moment, his hatred for Lin Feng had already reached its peak. He wished he could tear him into pieces, kill him 1,000 times, 10,000 times. This little bastard, not only did he make him lose face in front of the divine envoy, this time, he was seriously injured. It was not a physical injury, but a mental one. What he lost was not only the innate treasure round ball. His soul also needed some time to recover. This would bring about a huge change in the upcoming 3rd war of the liches and demons. It was very likely that this injury was enough to kill him. He wanted to kill Lin Feng to vent his anger. Let's see how you die this time. Qitong's eyes were filled with shock. From his senses, he could sense that the distant Lin Feng seemed to be injured. More importantly, the distance between the 2 had increased once again. To a heaven spirit master, this was the most important thing. But, Qitong was suddenly startled. Bang! Bang! His heartbeat was extremely fast. It was a sign of extreme danger. Qitong widened his eyes. In that instant, he sensed a terrifying aura swiftly attacking him from behind. That energy, which had been condensed to the limit, was accompanied by a strong, murderous intent. At a speed that he could not dodge, it struck down from the sky like a bolt of lightning. Whoosh! He turned around abruptly. Qitong's eyes flashed with extreme disbelief. Lin Feng. He could not believe his eyes. That rapidly approaching figure had just been blasted away and was extremely far away from him. Lin Feng. Chapter 1184. Die. A cold voice seemed to come from hell. Purple light pierced through the sky, and the surging power drove the purple crystal spear. Lin Feng appeared like a ghost, and Qitong could not resist at all. Explosive flames condensed, as if he was powerless at the end of the road. Lin Feng no longer had that soul-stirring power in his eyes, but the awe-inspiring lightning slaughter armor made him look like a god. The horn on his forehead flashed with lightning, and it combined perfectly with the purple crystal spear. The lightning was extremely dazzling. At this moment, there was no power that could stop this attack. Qi. Lin Feng's face was calm and cold as he penetrated all defenses. Qitong's eyes flashed with shock, disbelief, and all kinds of complicated expressions. But in an instant, with a loud explosion, he disappeared into thin air. Bang! Everything was over. The flames were still lingering in the air. The dense killing intent formed a mist that slowly dissipated. The three red-clothed saints looked at the battle in the sky that had already ended. They had witnessed the death of the enforcer Chi Tong with their own eyes. It was as if a bolt from the blue had struck their minds, and they turned to stone. Did they see wrongly? The enforcer Chi Tong, who was ranked third among all the saints of the ancient race, was just dead, killed by a human. This was unheard of, and it was a great humiliation. It was not only a humiliation for the Divine Hall, but also for the ancient race. They had been slapped in the face in the ancient race's territory. The three red-clothed saints looked up at the purple light. It seemed different from when they first saw it, but it was still as terrifying and mysterious. It was as if they were looking at an unreachable peak. Who on earth was this human warrior named Lin Feng? I really can't underestimate him. They are all at the peak of the saint level, but the difference between the ancient race and the human race is too great. They're not on the same level at all. Lin Feng murmured, his eyes flickering. After fighting, one would know the difference. The ancient race and the sorcerer race were far superior to the human race. This was an indisputable fact. The difference in talent was the decisive factor. His strength was enough to sweep away all the human saint-level pinnacle powerhouses, but he was not invincible here. Who? Lin Feng let out a long breath and put away his amethyst spear. This wasn't Chi Tong's main body, but his doppelganger. The lightning slaughter armor on Chi Tong's body was enough to explain everything. The explosion of the round bead had caused Chi Tong's main body to suffer heavy injuries. No matter how fast Chi Tong's reaction was, Chi Tong was too cunning. In order to get close to him, she did not expect him to have such a trump card. Fortunately, the body of his original body was strong enough. Although he was injured, the injury was not serious. It would not take long for him to recover. If he did not have a doppelganger this time, he would have fallen into a bitter battle. Especially after the explosion, the distance between them had increased once again. It would not be so easy to get close to Chi Tong again. After all, he was already familiar with his own attacks. Very powerful. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. Although he had defeated Chi Tong, he couldn't bring himself to be happy, because the enemies would appear one after another. The first time, it was the lightning slaughter. The second time, it was the senior enforcer. And this time, it was the head enforcer. What about the next time? Given the reputation and methods of the ancient race, they would not let him go since the beginning. Next time, would he still win? Pursing his lips, Lin Feng felt a little worried. This had already become an imminent danger. He could completely imagine how troublesome his future situation would be. If the next opponent was a saint-level expert of the ancient race, he would not be able to resist even if he used all his skills. There was a huge gap between the saint level and the saint level. I'll take it one step at a time. Even if I return to the human world, the emissaries of the ancient race will still come after me. I will implicate my clansmen. I can't possibly return to the kingdom of Maru and live in seclusion, right? Lin Feng felt helpless as his mind was filled with complicated thoughts. After all, there were too many things he had to do. Now that he had embarked on this path, there was no turning back. Whoosh! With a flash of his figure, Lin Feng landed on the ground. When the aura landed, the three red-clothed saints panicked. By the time they regained their senses, this strange human with horns on his head had already appeared in front of them. The battle just now and the spear that killed the head enforcer, Chi Tong, appeared in their minds. The three of them were terrified. He was too strong. So what if he was a human? His strength would not be weakened by his race. As long as this human wanted to, he could kill the three of them effortlessly. This was because his aura did not decrease at all, and there were no injuries on his body. He had won the battle with the head enforcer, Chi Tong. Even the head enforcer, who was at the peak of the saint level and ranked third among the ancient race's saints, was killed. Not to mention the three of them. Tell me the way to the ancient Phoenix clan, and I will not kill you. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his voice was extremely cold. Looking at the three ancient race saints in front of him, He could see the fear and trembling in their hearts. It was written all over their faces. Originally, he wanted to ask for directions, but it was obviously impossible. Ancient Phoenix Clan. The expressions of the three red-clothed saints changed slightly. The leader hesitated and said with fear, "Why are you asking this?" "You don't need to know," Lin Feng replied indifferently. "Tell me, and I will leave immediately." There was a faint threat in his words. He could see the unfriendliness shown by the three red-clothed saints. Even if he asked nicely, there would be no result. In fact, according to Lady Nangong, the ancient race was full of contempt and disdain for the human race. Although he did not feel this way now, it was replaced by another emotion. Hostility. Deep hostility. However, he could understand that because he had just killed the head enforcer, Qi Tong, the divine temple had a very high status and prestige among the ancient race. The three red-robed saints looked at each other and finally came to a decision. "Kill us if you want. We won't tell you," the leading red-clothed saint said in a deep voice. "It's absolutely impossible for us to betray our fellow human race." Although the other red-clothed saint's expression was ugly, he still spoke righteously. "That's right. We, the ancient race, are not afraid of death." The three of them said the same thing without any disagreement. It was obvious that they were prepared to sacrifice themselves. Lin Feng frowned slightly. The three of them spoke with a firm expression. Although there was fear in their eyes, they were unafraid of death. Compared to the human race who liked to fight and kill each other, this trait of the ancient race was admirable. Even if they were not related by blood, they would never betray their fellow human race. This was because the same blood flowed in their bodies, and they had their own pride. "What if I say that I have no ill intentions?" Lin Feng's eyes flickered. The three of them looked at each other, and the leader sneered. "Don't pretend. Do you think we don't know how cunning you humans are? That's right. Don't think that you can fool us. If you want to kill us, just kill us. Don't be so long-winded. There are no cowards among the ancient race." Looking at the three of them, Lin Feng was full of helplessness. There were two paths in front of him. The first was to kill them and ask the other clansmen. However, he would still be rejected. The pride of the ancient race was not arrogance due to their strength. It was the pride of their character and the nobility of their bloodline. As for the second path, it doesn't matter if you believe me or not. "I have no ill intentions," Lin Feng said calmly. "Since you don't want to tell me, I won't force you. I admire your integrity. I take back what I said just now. Goodbye." Looking at the three of them, Lin Feng smiled. Then he stood up and left. He did not have the habit of killing the innocent, and he did not have any deep hatred for the three red-clothed saints. He did not want to kill them. So what if he killed them all? Would he be able to find out the location of the ancient Feng clan? Even if he found out, would it be correct? He would leave it to fate. Even if he could not find the location here, it did not mean that he could not find it. There would be plenty of opportunities. Swish! Lin Feng soared through the air, instantly disappearing into the distance. The three red-clothed saints looked at each other in confusion. They did not know what was going on. In the shrine of the ancient clan, it was the spiritual symbol of the ancient clan. It had great prestige in the ancient clan, and its status was second only to the 7 ancient gods of the ancient clan. Divine Envoy, the traitor of the Thunder Mongol clan, has been caught. Divine Envoy, it is suspected that there is a member of the Sorcerer clan. In the hall, a white-haired youth wearing a one-eyed eye patch was sitting on the throne with his chin in his hand. He was listening to the reports. Below him, there were several experts of the ancient clan who were wearing uniforms. They were reporting to him. As law enforcers, they had many things to do. Suddenly, bang, there was an explosion. It was the expert from the Thunder Dragon clan who was reporting. He was stunned. The white-haired youth stretched out his left hand, which flashed with a terrifying light. One of the 3-star diamonds above him had completely shattered, as if it had lost some kind of power. Divine Envoy, this is... The expert from the Thunder Dragon clan was extremely shocked. The law enforcer of the first team, Qi Tong. The white-haired youth's expression was solemn and cold. His eyes were as terrifying as frost, and the entire hall seemed to be frozen. All the experts of the ancient clan kept quiet out of fear. They felt their hair stand on end. Although the divine envoy was not angry, his aura was enough to tell everything. The divine envoy was furious. I am willing to follow up on this mission and avenge Chi Tong. The expert from the Thunder Dragon clan knelt on one knee and said loudly. He was the chief enforcer of the 2nd Brigade under the command of God Emissary by Refinement. Chi Tong was killed even with his strength. Do you think you can accomplish it? The white-haired youth, Lei Meng, glanced at him coldly. Although he did not say anything, Lei Meng did not dare to say anything. This was because what he said was the truth. He was too eager to obtain credit and had completely forgotten about this matter. However, who killed Chi Tong? Lei Meng was filled with doubts. Given Chi Tong's strength, the person who wanted to kill him was at least a sage king. Do your job well. The white-haired young man waved his hand and stood up calmly. His seemingly thin body carried a shocking strength, especially that blindfold that covered his eyes. It was as if it contained a devil, causing people to tremble with fear. I will follow up on this matter personally. I want to see who dares to challenge the authority of the ancient clan. You are courting death. Chapter 1185. Southern Ancient Region. Whoosh! A figure was flying in the air. He was wearing a black martial attire and had a powerful aura. However, his expression was serious. Lin Feng's eyes kept flashing. He pursed his lips and looked worried. He was obviously troubled. Third failure. He didn't know. I can't use force or soft methods, Lin Feng thought. He felt a headache coming on. It was easy for him to find an ancient clan. However, he was like a headless fly when it came to finding the ancient Sao Feng clan. He had no direction at all. What should he do? He didn't have time to waste. In a few months, he would have to return to the southern region to participate in the Emperor competition. Since he had promised the heavenly secret Sacred Lord and Emperor Shun, he wouldn't go back on his word. He couldn't afford to lose this opportunity to become an emperor. Because I'm a human? Lin Feng smiled. The ancient clans looked down on humans. He knew this very well. According to Lady Nangong, the ancient clans didn't just look down on humans. They also looked down on the sorcerer race and the Yao race. They were too arrogant. They thought they had the strongest bloodline and looked down on other races. In terms of pride, no other race could compare to the ancient clans. But how do they know I'm a human? Lin Feng's eyes twinkled as he felt suspicious. He also had half the ancient bloodline. Moreover, he hid his aura every time he asked for directions. No matter how sensitive the ancient clans were, ordinary saints shouldn't be able to sense his aura. It would be difficult to prove that he was a human just by looking at his aura. Lin Feng nodded. He was deep in thought. After all, humans and the ancient clans had similar figures and characteristics. Wait, Lin Feng instantly stopped and smiled bitterly. He had forgotten one thing. Although I hid my aura, my strength can't lie. Lin Feng clenched his fists. Although the ancient clans, saints couldn't tell how strong he was, they could tell if he was an ancient by looking at the strength of his body and the emphasis of his cultivation. His clone was from the Battle God clan. The ancient clans were all from the Heavenly God clan. The fourth ancient clan, with bright eyes, Lin Feng's figure blurred for a moment, and he instantly changed from his avatar state to his main body state. Compared to his doppelganger, his main body had dense fire elemental senses. It was as if he walked the path of a heavenly god. Furthermore, his aura was concealed, making it difficult for ordinary ancient race experts to discover him. Fortunately, the human language is the same as the Aboriginals' language. Lin Feng pondered. The demon race and the sorcerer race spoke different languages. Only the humans and the ancients spoke the same language. It was probably because the humans looked similar to the ancients, and the ancestors of the humans worshipped the ancients. That was why the ancients used the ancients' language. It was because the ancients would not be willing to speak the same language as the humans. It's right in front. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The auras in front of him were extremely clear. The stone castle-like building was very simple and unadorned, but it gave off a feeling of returning to simplicity. Hopefully, I can get away with it, Lin Feng said to himself. Whoosh, whoosh. Before Lin Feng arrived, there were already a few auras rapidly approaching. 2 middle-level and 3 beginner-level saints. Lin Feng quickly determined. They are quite alert. Although he had concealed his aura, his strength was still present. Ordinary ancient martial art practitioners might not be able to sense it, but the ancient race experts could definitely sense the threat. The senses of a saint were very strong, especially those who cultivated the heavenly god clan. Whoosh, whoosh. 2 dark red figures wearing dragon robes arrived first. Lin Feng looked over. They were 2 elderly people with extraordinary auras. The star seals on their foreheads were shining brightly. They were also sizing him up. At the same time, whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The other 3 figures also arrived quickly. After all, there was a difference in strength between a middle-level saint and a beginner-level saint. Who are you? The slightly taller red-robed elder was the first to speak. It was obvious that he had the highest status. In an instant, Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he entered his own state. The air seemed to condense in an instant. The power of the vast star pupil and vast star pupil made everyone's expression change. The 3 beginner-level saints especially felt immense pressure. In the Douling world, strength was the most important thing. Lin Feng's expression was calm. However, because he had concealed his aura, he had no choice but to show his strength. Sometimes, intimidation and toughness were necessary. How do I get to the ancient Feng clan? Lin Feng asked in a low voice. He did not answer the red-robed elder's question. Instead, he went straight to the point. Although half of the blood of the ancient race flowed in his body, the other half was still human. He was probably more hated by the ancient race than ordinary humans. This could be seen from the way the ancient tribe Divine Palace treated him. With the pride of the ancient race, they would never allow themselves to have illicit relations with humans. To them, having offspring was the greatest humiliation. Where are you from? The other red-robed elder asked. His dark eyes were filled with doubt. However, he was still angry and did not dare to offend Lin Feng too much. Lin Feng's clear eyes landed on the faces of the 2 elders. Then he glanced at the 3 beginner-level saints and sighed in his heart. The other party was obviously more cautious than he had imagined. It seemed that it would be difficult to bluff his way out of this. Threats were useless against the ancient race. Could he lie to them and say that he was from the ancient race? However, he knew nothing about the ancient race. If he tried to lie, it would only make things worse. Once he was questioned, he would be rendered speechless. These old and experienced ancient race saints were not easy to deal with. Not only were the ancient race more talented than humans, but their average intelligence was also higher than humans. They were recognized as the most intelligent of the 3 human races. What should he do? Lin Feng's mind raced. As he felt the passage of time, the 5 of them became even more suspicious. He could not delay any longer. Got it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The scene of him meeting Qi Tong that day appeared in his mind. These ancient races were extremely respectful of the deity hall. The deity hall's influence was spread across the 7 ancient regions. Lin Feng's background was a mystery. Furthermore, he had evidence in his hands. Although he was overjoyed, Lin Feng's expression did not change. A light flashed in his hand, and a dragon head ring appeared. It was shining brightly. The dragon head was lofty and majestic, as if it had come alive. It gave off an aura of power and prestige. A token from the deity hall. Greetings, emissary. The 5 of them immediately bowed when they saw the dragon head ring. Although they did not know which race Lin Feng belonged to, the strength of his aura could not be fake. Moreover, the token of the ancient race emissary was genuine. I am carrying out a mission. Tell me the location of the ancient Feng clan immediately, shouted Lin Feng in a deep voice. His face was frosty. His arrogance and arrogance were mixed together with a hint of disdain. However, the 5 of them didn't dare to move. There was no need to use soft words. it would only make them more suspicious. Since he was pretending to be an emissary of the deity hall, he had to be as domineering as Chi Tong. As expected, the five of them did not suspect him at all. In fact, they did not dare to suspect him. Emissary, the ancient Feng clan, is in the depths of the ancient regions. Head south in this direction. The red-robed elder quickly pointed out the direction. How could they interfere with the mission of the deity hall? To them, the deity hall was a high and mighty existence. Great success. Lin Feng left with a faint smile on his face. Although the process was a little complicated, he was very satisfied with the result. He had finally found the location of the ancient Feng clan. Soon, he would be able to meet his biological mother. He would be able to confirm his true identity. However, it was really a close call. Lin Feng smiled. His eyes flickered as he looked at the dragon head ring in his hand. There was a hint of hatred in his eyes. It was the ring that had harmed his family. His father's injuries were closely related to them. They had even tried to kill him several times. How could he tolerate this? The deity hall. One day, I will tear down this signboard. Lin Feng's eyes were cold and sharp. He did not have the strength now, but it did not mean that he could not destroy the signboard of the deity hall in the future. Swoosh! Lin Feng's body was as fast as lightning. His face was calm, but his heart was inexplicably uneasy. He felt uncomfortable all over. Looking around, he could see that the ancient southern region was much more desolate than he had imagined. Compared to the bustling human world, this place was like a real wilderness. Thump! 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 Lin Feng's heart was beating fast. His expression changed. He had not felt this for a long time. Panic and shock. That was a kind of warning. This kind of intuition had saved him countless times, but now it had appeared again, combined with the uneasiness just now. That feeling was obviously not ordinary. What was going on? Looking around, there was nothing suspicious. However, that feeling was real and undeniable. His heart was about to jump out of his throat. Lin Feng's intuition was slightly pale. He felt as if he was touched by some strange force and bound. However, he could not feel anything. The kind of hair-raising and goosebumps made him feel extremely uncomfortable. His spine was cold. An unprecedented horror slowly rose from the bottom of his heart. With a pale face, Lin Feng looked around. His breathing became more and more rapid. His eyes were blurred as if he could only see blankness. He could not see the surrounding scenery clearly. It was as if he had lost himself. What was going on? What happened to me? Lin Feng kept calling as his chest heaved up and down. Are you looking for me? A faint voice seemed to come from the horizon. It was like a bell ringing beside his ear. Lin Feng was stunned. At this moment, time seemed to stop. Looking at the source of the voice, Lin Feng raised his head. In the distant sky, high above, a white figure emitting a cold aura was looking down at him. It was a white-haired young man. His aura was indescribable and terrifying. With his hands behind his back, he just stood there and looked at Lin Feng. Lin Feng could not move at all, especially under the eye patch on his one eye. It was as if a demon was there. Chapter 1186. Uncontrollable fear. It was not fear in his heart, but fear in his body. Lin Feng was deeply shocked. This was the ancient southern region, one of the hottest regions in the entire Douling world. However, ever since the white-haired youth appeared, there was only boundless coldness. The coldness penetrated deep into his bones and soul, making him shudder. He had never felt this way before. Ever since he became a saint, no one had ever given him such pressure. It was so oppressive that he could not breathe. Even people as strong as the heavenly secret Saint Lord and the human demon Saint Lord did not feel this way. The two Saint Lords of the human race were a level lower than the white-haired youth in front of him. Even if the white-haired youth did not use any techniques and just stood there quietly, he was already unable to move. However, no. Lin Feng's face was stern. Blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth, but his eyes shone brightly. He clenched his fists tightly. His expression was filled with unyielding determination as he stubbornly raised his head to look at the white-clothed youth. It was as if there was a flame bursting out from that extreme frost. Even though it was weak, it represented his fighting spirit and unwillingness. Even if he had to die, he did not want to die in a cowardly manner. This was the dignity of a martial artist. Oh, the white-haired youth's eyes brightened, as though he was surprised. However, he soon returned to normal. Qi-Tong, I have underestimated you, the white-haired youth said calmly. There was a hint of admiration in his calm voice. With his eyesight, he could naturally see Lin Feng's true strength. Just the fact that Lin Feng could break free from his eye technique meant that he was not an ordinary saint. Is that so? Lin Feng pursed his lips and asked, Who are you? He spoke slowly and in a questioning tone. However, Lin Feng's mind was filled with thoughts. He was like a machine working at its limit. He had to think of a way. The chances of him defeating the white-haired youth were close to zero. Even if he did not know his true strength, it was not that difficult for the white-haired youth to kill him. He was even stronger than the human demon Saint Lord. Right now, the only way out left for him was to find a way to escape. Only by escaping from this place would they have a chance of survival. If they fought head-on, they would only die. Lin Feng looked straight at the white-haired young man and the exquisite dragon head ring on his left hand. It was obvious that he had a much higher status than Qi-Tong, and it was the temple. He would not give up until he killed him. My name is Thrum, the third oracle. Tian spoke indifferently, while the eye that was covered by the eye patch seemed to have been extinguished. However, his other eye flickered with an icy cold sheen, and it revealed a trace of killing intent. How is it? Have you found it? Lin Feng was slightly startled, and his expression changed. A life-saving method. You said with a smile that was not a smile, but it caused Lin Feng to feel a chill down his spine. In front of this young man who was not much older than him, it was as if he was standing naked in front of him and was clearly seen through. Let's play a game. You extended 3 fingers. I'll give you 3 chances to attack. If you can hurt me with 3 attacks, then... You looked at Lin Feng and smiled indifferently. I'll let you live. How about it? Isn't it interesting? After a pause, Yu's eyes turned cold. Of course, you can choose not to accept it or run away with your tail between your legs. However, I guarantee that you won't be able to escape from me. Yu opened his palm, and his eyes were filled with confidence. He was toying with him like a cat toying with a mouse. Lin Feng's heart sank to the bottom, and his face turned pale. This feeling was very uncomfortable, but he knew that Yu was telling the truth. Yu definitely had the strength to kill him before he could escape, destroying his body and soul. He was all too familiar with this kind of confidence. I accept. Lin Feng's voice was hoarse, but he did not hesitate. Perhaps this feeling was so humiliating, but he had no other choice. This was the only way to survive. Your courage is commendable. Yu smiled indifferently. Don't worry. I mean what I say. Yu raised his head and said softly, Come. Yu's voice was filled with contempt and disdain. Yu's smile was extremely wanton and arrogant, but he had the ability to do so. With his hands behind his back, he looked like a high and mighty emperor, looking down on everyone. There's only one chance. Lin Feng's expression changed. He was very certain. The so-called 3 attacks actually meant that there was only one real chance. Whether it succeeded or not depended on his strongest attack. If he could not break through with his strongest attack, the other 2 attacks were even more impossible. The weakness of the Aboriginals is their physical strength. Even if he's a Saint King, his physical strength is at most on par with mine. But, raising his head, Lin Feng stared at you with a faint smile in his eyes. That was a deep confidence. Not advisable. Although my attack is strong, it's difficult to break through the defense of an ordinary Saint King. With his astral origin power and innate defensive treasure, it's not difficult to block my attack. Even, it won't be easy for me to get close to him. There are too many uncertainties and too many changes. Even what I'm thinking now might be within his expectations. If I want to injure him, there's only one possibility. With a flash of light in his eyes, Lin Feng pursed his lips. The dense engulfing fire instantly sprang up. With a dragon-like power, it instantly broke the ice binding slightly. In an instant, whoosh, Lin Feng moved like an arrow shooting out from a bow. The dense flames intertwined. The engulfing fire surged and enveloped him like the bright stars in the sky. The misty cloud steps was executed as he wished. The space seemed to be torn apart. His speed was extremely fast. Facing the rapid pressure and restraint, Lin Feng was like a spring that was constantly being squeezed. He completely erupted. The greater the pressure, the stronger the strength. All along, Lin Feng had been facing all kinds of difficulties and overcoming all kinds of obstacles. This was the path that one had to take to become an emperor. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Ho's mouth. Only his right hand appeared from his hand behind his back. However, in an instant, a snowflake-like white light appeared. An extremely cold air completely enveloped the surroundings. The extreme coldness caused one's hair to stand on end. Even the space itself was frozen. Oh, like a strong wind blowing through a candle flame. Lin Feng's expression instantly changed. His perception of his space was completely sealed. His footsteps were in a mess. The execution of the misty cloud steps was completely interrupted. However, this wasn't the most terrifying thing. The most shocking thing was that the engulfing fire seemed to have met its nemesis and wilted. Its luster dimmed and lost its vitality. Ho was a water, celestial spirit master. The situation was completely under his control. First attack, Ho said indifferently. His tone was calm and proud. His body didn't even move an inch. It was as if he didn't feel any threat from Lin Feng's attack. The feeling of being in control was too terrifying. But this is only the first attack. Lin Feng roared. His eyes shone brightly in his autonomous state. The soul power in his mind poured out like a tidal wave, completely converging to form a fiery red sparrow. It flew out from his eyes like an illusion and a shadow. This was the eye technique that he had comprehended after breaking through 70% of the Saint stage. It was an offensive ability. Vermilion Bird Attack, 10%. Lin Feng's voice was ice cold as he released his soul attack. At this moment, Ho finally put away his relaxed expression and his eyes shone brightly. Childish. He only spat out 2 words, but the luster in his eyes was already completely bright. He also had a special eye. The enforcers of the Divine Palace were elites carefully selected by the ancients. As for the Divine Envoys, they were 1 in a million. In Ho's opinion, Lin Feng using a Saint-level Heavenly Spirit Master's attack to fight against a Saint-level Saint King's attack was the epitome of stupidity. Compared to the other 3, a Heavenly Spirit Master's attack was most particular about the level. A difference of 1 level would greatly widen the gap between their souls. This was something that could not be compensated for. A battle between 2 Heavenly Spirit Masters was the simplest and most concise way to compete. It was like standing on a 1-meter-wide arena, with 2 people throwing punches at each other. It was a battle of pure strength. There was not a single bit of luck to speak of. Oh, as if thinking of something, Ho frowned. The light that had just lit up in his eye patch was extinguished. Only his right eye was left flashing. The power of his soul seemed to have been forcefully suppressed. It was a feeling of helplessness. Cunning human. Ho's expression was unfriendly. In his opinion, if he used a soul attack against a soul attack, he was 100% confident that he could destroy Lin Feng's soul. But he had just said that he would give Lin Feng 3 chances to attack. If he killed Lin Feng in 1 attack, wouldn't he be slapping himself in the face? To the prideful ancient race, Ho, who had a strong sense of self-esteem, could not accept this. He would not make an exception for such a lowly human. Therefore, his vast power was completely suppressed. However, even this suppressed power was not something that Lin Feng could withstand. Bang! The power of their souls collided. The fiery red vermilion bird seemed to have entered a mirror with a cold aura. In an instant, fresh blood was spat out. Lin Feng's face was ghastly pale. However, Ho's lips curled into a cold smile. With his strength, It would be easy for him to destroy Lin Feng with his power of the soul, let alone block it. But no wonder Qi Tong died in his hands. A cold glint flashed across Ho's eyes. The first time they made contact, although Qi wasn't injured, he still felt some pressure. The amount of soul energy that came into contact with Qi would be depleted, even if his opponent was only a martial saint. However, his eye technique was not weak. Unfortunately, if I were a sorcerer, his sneak attack would have succeeded. But now he is digging his own grave. Ho laughed disdainfully. Ho could feel that Lin Feng's aura was weakening. Even if one was only defending against a soul attack, the reaction was relative. Even if he did not really attack Lin Feng, his impenetrable defense was enough to make Lin Feng suffer. The game will end sooner. Ho was calm and composed. However, he did not see Lin Feng's lowered head. A glint flashed across his eyes. Most of the time, what one saw and felt might not be the truth. Similarly, it could be a trap. Second attack. Lin Feng's deep voice sounded. 2 more chapters, 12 consecutive chapters. The small boss is very strong. Chapter 1187. Hua. Ho's expression changed slightly. It came very quickly. Lin Feng's attack was faster than he had imagined. Although his aura had weakened slightly, it was the aura of the soul. His physical strength did not decrease at all. That determined expression, accompanied by the bright red light of the engulfing fire, Lin Feng once again engaged in close combat. Qi, like an amethyst spear, it pierced through. Lin Feng, full power. Fight! Lin Feng's expression was firm. Purple light flashed in his hand, and the amethyst spear appeared. Although the space was sealed, and using the vast star pupil to break it would consume a lot of energy, even if he did not use the mist cloud steps, he had absolute confidence in his speed. There were no tricks and no extra movements. A spear, with an absolute offensive, rushed forward. Oh, if you have the ability, don't dodge. Lin Feng's eyes flashed as he shouted. Bullying. A direct challenge. In Ho's eyes, this was something that could not be tolerated. He was a divine emissary, and even among saint kings, he was a cut above them. Being challenged by a human saint was a rare thing to him. If he were to dodge now, would he still have face? Do I need to? Ho's eyes lit up. There was no need to make a big fuss over a mere human. Although he said that, he was not stupid. He naturally understood that this was Lin Feng's provocation. Close combat was indeed the ancient race's weakness. Pa! Pa! A power that seemed to be sealed in ice appeared in both of Ho's hands this time. Although he had been provoked, he had taken the initiative to be provoked. However, this did not mean that he would lose his cool and would follow Lin Feng's wishes. He just wanted to prove that even in close combat, he was enough to complete victory. I will make you accept your defeat wholeheartedly. Ho's red eye shot out a cold light. The world of ice arrived. The sky cracked like snowflakes, and a cold aura completely froze Lin Feng. Powerful star source energy covered the surroundings, crushing the power of fire into pieces. Even if this was not Ho's full strength, but it was enough to seal Lin Feng completely. Powerful. It's really amazing. Lin Feng's fighting spirit was boiling. The strength of the Black Lotus was even more terrifying than he had imagined. Even if he had the geographical advantage, there was still a huge gap between them. Actually, he had intentionally used the Vermilion Bird Assault just now. If he had used a normal soul attack, he would have definitely suffered a backlash. However, the Vermilion Bird Assault only consumed his soul energy and was an attack of its own. Naturally, it wouldn't cause him any harm. Qi Tong had suffered a great loss previously. The weakening of his soul aura was naturally done on purpose. He was indeed worthy of being an oracle. He was not affected by the first attack at all. Fortunately, I didn't send out my clone, Lin Feng thought to himself. Actually, he had the opportunity to send out his doppelganger, and the situation would definitely be better than now. However, even if the clone and the main body attacked together, the chances of injuring the Ho were minuscule. Moreover, the secret of the existence of his clone would be exposed, which would be a disaster for him. His clone was his final trump card. Once his true body was killed, he still had a clone. Like the heavenly secret Saint Sovereign, he still had hope. The most important thing was, whether it was the first attack or the second attack, they were merely preparations. It was an ambush for the final attack. He had never thought that he would be able to injure the Hoe with just the first 2 attacks. With the Hoe's full defense, this was an impossible mission. It was like a cat catching a mouse. He couldn't win this so-called game at all. His only chance was when he underestimated his opponent. Close in again. The purple crystal spear rumbled. Together with the dazzling, devouring fire, Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He turned into a sharp arrow and completely disregarded life and death. He flew over from the horizon like a fiery light, breaking through this frozen land. Intense chi waves rose along with the Hoe's aura, causing the entire region to be shaken. This was a battle between true powerful beings. In the distance, there was a long stretch of fire canyon. The fire here burned for a long time, so the chi of fire here was rather dense. The terrifying temperature made even cosmic realm states shrink back. In the long crevice of the canyon, the temperature of the flames was even more terrifying. The true flames of the Earth's core. It spread through the surface and into the crevice. Perhaps even a saint-level powerhouse will be burned to ashes. However, at this moment, there was a fiery red figure sitting cross-legged in the crevice, cultivating. It was a woman wearing fiery red scaled armor. The phoenix crown on her head made her look extremely noble and beautiful. Her exquisite and graceful body formed perfect curves. Her proud figure and her beautiful face formed the most beautiful picture in the world. The flames burned fiercely around her body, following her like a shadow. Not only did they not cause her any harm, but they also wrapped around her like little fairies, forming a beautiful illusion on her back. It was a flaming phoenix, just like the star mark on her forehead, clear and bright. Suddenly, the phoenix woman opened her eyes. The phoenix star mark on her forehead seemed to cry loudly, causing the intense flames of the Earth's core to retreat 3 feet. Her beautiful eyes flashed slowly. The phoenix woman raised her head and looked at the sky. "What's he doing here?" The phoenix woman said softly. Her voice was very soft, but it was like the sound of nature reverberating 3 feet. Her beautiful brows slightly raised. Although there was some curiosity in the phoenix woman's eyes, she immediately closed them again. Her breath was long, and she entered the state of cultivation again. He did not dodge, nor did he dodge. Facing Lin Feng's attack, the Hoe's expression was rather serious. The freezing halo in his hand suddenly bloomed, and his chi seemed to freeze all the flames. Although he was a heavenly spirit master, he was still a sacred lord-level powerhouse. Even if he had the strength of a heavenly martial artist, he had full confidence in fighting against Lin Feng. The gap between their levels was unavoidable. The battle intent in his eyes was clear. His left eye, which was covered by the eye patch, had a cold light jumping like a demon. One black, one white. 2 figures collided like 2 shooting stars, approaching at an extremely fast speed. Bang! 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 Lin Feng's heart was beating fast. All the sounds around him seemed to disappear as he entered his own world. At this moment, Lin Feng could only see Bai's right eye, which was shining with cold light and the mysterious and terrifying power hidden under the eye patch. However, there was no way to consider. No matter how terrifying the Hoe's hidden strength was, it had nothing to do with him, because he already had no way out. This is your last chance, and also my only chance. The power erupted like a flood. Lin Feng felt that the distance between him and the Hoe was getting closer and closer. Every moment seemed to be as long as 100 years or even 1,000 years. Every minute was as far as light years. All the subtle fluctuations of the aura became indescribable at this moment. It was fast, but also very slow. Closer, closer, good. Now, Lin Feng fiercely gritted his teeth, and his aura instantly erupted. He completely estimated the distance between them to the point that every minute difference was like a speck of dust. At this moment, the power of both his eyes and his self-state completely erupted. The bottleneck of the Vastar pupil and Vastar pupil that had been suppressed all this time seemed to have broken through in an instant, appearing like a cocoon. Under the pressure, it displayed an astonishing eruption. For the last time, and also for the only time, hope. Vermilion bird attack, 50%. Lin Feng shouted with a hysterical voice. With the control of the power of the soul, 50% of the vermilion bird attack's power was already the limit. He couldn't control any more and couldn't display it. It wasn't just the control of the soul. It was also the understanding of the ability. This was already the limit of his current power. His strongest move. Clang! The bird's cry was loud. The fiery red color illuminated the sky. All the power was released at this moment, turning into the purest power. The third attack. Lin Feng gritted his teeth, and his blood color was ferocious. His entire person seemed to have turned into a crazy Azura from hell. The explosive power was completely released, like a flood breaking through a dam. It didn't matter how big the difference in strength was, or how small the probability was. He would fight to the end. He had no way to retreat. "How dare you?" Lei Lei roared, and Gui Li was extremely angry. He was completely checkmated by Lin Feng. He never thought that Lin Feng would be so cunning. In the open, he planned one path, but in the dark his close combat attacks were fake, and his soul attack was real. He had calculated everything. He originally thought that it was a game of cat and mouse, but he didn't expect that he, the third messenger, would be played by a lowly human. How could he tolerate this? How could he tolerate this? "You're courting death." Gui Li's expression was crazed, and his eyes were filled with anger. At such a close distance, he didn't have time to display the power of his eyes, and Lin Feng's attack was too fast. Everything happened in a matter of seconds. It was like a vermilion bird burning with scarlet flames, rushing into the frozen world like a moth to a flame. The raging flames burned the entire world, like sparks of fire starting a prairie fire. Gui Li's eyes were wide open, and they were bloodshot and ferocious. Boom! It went straight into his mind. Lin Feng's soul wasn't inferior to that of an ordinary ancient race sage. This could be seen from the battle with Qi Tong. Combined with the super strong attack power of his top-tier eyes, his originally impressive power was raised to another level. Coupled with the sudden upgrade of his Vastar eyes and Vastar eyes, Lin Feng's soul attack had been raised to the level of a divine lord. Even the most ordinary attack of a divine lord couldn't be underestimated. This was because this was an attack of a heavenly soul master. It was an attack that was close at hand, and it went straight into the soul space of his mind. There were no superfluous techniques, and it was a pure competition. And the battlefield was Gui Li's body. Gui Li's head was in intense pain, and his expression was ferocious. It was as if his head had been destroyed, and he was hysterical. His eyes were bleeding, and he had turned into a demon. No matter how strong he was injured by a soul attack at such a close distance. A true Holy Lord level powerhouse was finally injured. Chapter 1188. Pung, pung, pung. The ice element turned into a ring of light and completely exploded. An injured Hui went completely crazy. It wasn't a physical injury, but a mental injury that was far greater than imagined. The power of the ice exploded as if it had no owner, destroying everything. Lin Feng, who was close at hand, was naturally injured. How could he not be affected at such a close distance? As a matter of fact, Lin Feng had borrowed the force of the collision to retreat the moment their soul attacks collided. Perhaps the amethyst spear could have hit Hui if it had moved forward, and it might have even injured Hui. However, it wasn't enough to kill Hui, and it wouldn't even be able to seriously injure Hui. With Hui's strength, it could completely nullify this close-range attack and even injure Hui. Game? The rules of the game were fixed. Even if he stabbed Hui, Could he really guarantee his survival? Besides, mental injury was also an injury. Compared to physical injury, the injury to the soul in Huey's mind was real. If he followed the rules of the game, then this injury would be enough for Huey to let him live. But was it possible? Pooh! Lin Feng spat out blood and quickly retreated. His expression was extremely ugly. Whether it was possible or not, he had to leave. He couldn't expect Huey to be merciful. His fate was in his own hands. Fortunately, I didn't clash head-on. He felt lucky. Huey's strength was more terrifying than he had imagined. If he had clashed with those ice rings, he would have been seriously injured. Perhaps his body wasn't weaker than Huey, but his defense was far inferior. Huey's attacks were also beyond his ability. The difference between Saint and Saint King was huge. His body felt weak, suddenly cold, and suddenly hot. The power of ice seemed to be corroding his body. The flame of rebirth tried its best to resist, but it was corroding from every corner like a poison. Lin Feng's face was green and white, but he gritted his teeth and quickly retreated. It didn't matter how serious his injuries were. Right now, he had to escape. He had to seize every minute and immediately escape from Huey's control. There was no other way. He didn't want to be led by the nose, didn't want to be controlled by others. Then, there was only one way left in front of him. Jade escape, shattering the Jade Scroll and escaping to save his life. However, using Jade escape required time and space. Now that the entire area was frozen and he was locked down by Huey's power, there was no way he could use Jade escape. Even if he used it, the spatial energy would definitely be destroyed, and those few seconds would be enough for him to die a few hundred times. The Hui in front of him was a genuine Holy Lord-level powerhouse. Run! Lin Feng pushed his speed to the limit, his eyes gleaming with a bloody light. This was an opportunity that had been forcefully created. With 50% of the Vermilion Bird's assault and the previous 10%, his soul was now in imminent danger. His head was dizzy, but at least it was much better than before. Even if he exhausted all of his soul force to attack, the Vermilion Bird's assault didn't receive any backlash. This was more powerful than anything else. Otherwise, just the reaction force alone would be enough to kill him several times over. Chi's strength surpassed his in all aspects. Damn it, cunning human. Yu's expression was extremely ugly, and his breathing was rapid. He was injured. It wasn't an injury on the surface, but an injury to his soul. Lin Feng's attack might not be able to injure his soul, but it was a real battlefield in his body. This was without a doubt. No matter how strong his soul was, it wasn't as strong as a Heaven Realm martial artist's soul, but a life soul. The life soul focused on offense, while the mortal soul focused on defense. Although you had a special that was like a sharp sword, it was also one of his strongest weapons. However, the sharper it was, the easier it was to break. You actually played me like a fool. Good. Very good. Yu's expression was gloomy. He had never been so humiliated since he was born. His body trembled slightly, and his eyes shone coldly. His left eye, which was covered by the eye patch, emitted a ruthless aura. He took a deep breath, and his emotions slowly calmed down. He looked around, but Lin Feng's figure was long gone. Dead? You knew how strong the reaction force of his soul force was. This was an out-and-out double-edged sword. With his soul force defense, how could Lin Feng escape unscathed? In his opinion, Lin Feng was basically dead, but his heart throbbed inexplicably. Yu frowned, but he couldn't see Lin Feng's corpse. If he was killed by the reaction force, then with the distance of Lin Feng's attack, his corpse must be around. Nothing. Nothing. Bang. Bang. Yu's heart beat violently, and a chill came from the bottom of his heart. It seemed that he had been played like a fool. Lin Feng, you're courting death. Yu roared furiously. As smart as he was, he naturally reacted. The corpse couldn't move. If he was killed by the reaction force of the soul, then the corpse wouldn't be destroyed. Then, there was only one possibility left. A little more. Almost there, just a little more. Lin Feng gritted his teeth, and blood seeped out of the corner of his mouth. His face was pale. His weak body wasn't fake, but he really suffered heavy injuries. But with his extreme speed, he finally escaped the sea of bitterness, out of Yu's range of control. The surrounding area was hot, as if it wanted to burn people to ashes, but this kind of heat was very comfortable, a comfortable feeling he had never felt before. He finally escaped from the frozen world. Go! The moment Lin Feng escaped, his eyes shined. There was still some strength left. Yu Miao tinkled in his left ear, like a melody very pleasant to the ear. After his strength rose to the saint level, many astral treasures were useless. For example, the devil-devouring ring that had performed countless meritorious deeds. Now, as star source energy replaced star energy, his body transformed, and the devil-devouring ring became useless. But fortunately, he didn't rely on external items, so his strength didn't weaken too much. And Yu Miao was a support type. It was very durable. Jade Escape. Lin Feng instantly used it. The vast star pupil shone. The space shook. Accompanied by Yu Miao's tinkling, Lin Feng's mouth drew a weak smile. Maybe there were many twists and turns, but at least he seized the last chance and successfully escaped. Yu's angry roar came to his ear, but it had nothing to do with him. He was about to leave. 3, 2, 1. Counting in his heart, Lin Feng exhaled. Everything was ready. The space energy flashed, and Yu Miao was already shining, reaching the peak. There was only one last moment left, but the god of fate was always so teasing. Want to leave? The cold voice seemed to come from the horizon, freezing people's hearts. Lin Feng's expression changed, and he suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure again, far stronger than the first time. It was completely clear that he was angry at this moment. Everything was frozen. Even the space energy was frozen. Time stopped at this second. Everything in this cold world turned into stone, including Lin Feng's expression. It was over. Everything was over. Lin Feng's heart sank as he looked at the proud and arrogant white figure in the distance with a sinister gaze slowly approaching. It was not only the game that was over, but also his fate, this battle with great disparity in strength. He had no more hope. It was impossible for him to survive in the hands of a normal Yu, not to mention that he was seriously injured. Praying that you would let him go? That was even more impossible. If you cared about the rules of the game and really wanted to let him go, then he would not have chased after him. However, it was not strange. The winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. This was the reality of the world. He was not as good as Yu Miao. You don't want to run anymore? We looked down at Lin Feng, a sharp light shooting out from his eyes. Lin Feng smiled faintly, looked at you, and did not say anything. No matter what he said, it was pointless. Since his main body had been killed, there was naturally no need to resist. What he should consider now was how to protect his clone from being discovered and preserve a chance of survival. This was the most crucial point. Once his clone was discovered, the consequences would be, it was unimaginable. Zhao gritted his teeth, making his teeth chatter. Looking at Lin Feng's faint smile, he felt like Lin Feng was mocking him, which annoyed him. What was he mocking? Was he mocking him for his stupidity or for not keeping his promise? Despicable human. Yu's face turned ugly. He waved his right hand, and an icicle flew out. It was as if he was venting his anger, and it was aimed at Lin Feng. Looking at Lin Feng's smile, he couldn't help but feel angry. Still smiling faintly, Lin Feng looked at the icicle, but he did not ignite the rebirth flame to defend himself. To Yu's surprise, Lin Feng closed his eyes and faced death calmly. What? Yu's eyes darkened, and his face turned ugly. He thought that Lin Feng would dodge, and then he could humiliate Lin Feng to his heart's content and take revenge. But now what was this? Bang! The icicle pierced Lin Feng's chest, and the great force sent Lin Feng flying. The terrifying power, along with Lin Feng's blood, was about to take his life. The light in Yu's eyes changed, and he hesitated. Yu raised his hand, and the icicle disappeared. Bang! Lin Feng landed heavily on the ground with his arms and legs spread out. His face was pale, as he was severely wounded. His breathing was weak, but he was not dead. Blood kept oozing out. The big hole in Lin Feng's chest was fatal, but the powerful phoenix body quickly healed the wound. The blood stopped flowing out little by little. Although the injury was not light, Lin Feng's body's recovery ability was quite strong. But was it useful? Lin Feng was heartbroken, and a bitter smile appeared on his face. No matter how strong his recovery ability was, it was just a decoration, and he would only suffer a little more pain. He did not expect that the special ability he relied on to survive would become a burden. It was fate that made fools of people. He looked up at the sky, and he could not feel any heat around him. It was as if the whole world was frozen, and even his emotions were the same. Too strong. This time, the opponent was too scary. Under such despair, his emotions became very calm. Lin Feng looked up at the sky, but he was suddenly covered by a white figure. He was very familiar with that figure. It was you, the third divine envoy of the deity's Templar, who had beaten him into the abyss. Don't waste time. Just give me a quick death. Lin Feng looked at you and said indifferently. His expression was calm, as if he was facing death calmly. Chapter 1189. It was a predestined ending. Ever since he saw Hui for the first time, he knew what the outcome would be. The difference in strength between them was too great. Even if he used all his strength, even if he gave up his dignity, even if he used all his techniques in front of absolute strength, the so-called techniques were nothing but fleeting clouds. He would be completely crushed, because Hui was indeed stronger than him. He accepted his defeat wholeheartedly. Closing his eyes, Lin Feng did not show any fear on his face. The deity's hall had spent so much effort to capture him, even sending out divine masters. They had already given him enough face. It was no doubt a fool's dream to hope that they would let him go. Rather than being captured by the deity's hall, he might as well give up his original body. At least his doppelganger could survive. But many times things did not go as one wished. I won't kill you. Hui looked down at Lin Feng and said in a low voice. Lin Feng frowned slightly and then opened his eyes. He looked at Hui with a complicated expression. Their eyes met. Don't be happy too early, Hui said coldly. I will bring you back to the deity's hall. Lin Feng smiled faintly and said softly, Is this the path of survival you mentioned? Why not? Hui raised his head and said, At least I didn't break my promise. Is that so? Lin Feng smiled. You have taught me what it means to deceive others and myself. Hui's face was pale. He looked at Lin Feng with a cold expression. One could see the killing intent in his eyes. Lin Feng knew about Hui's character. In fact, every ancient clan member was extremely arrogant and had a strong sense of self-esteem, let alone a divine envoy. Could he endure his provocation and not fall out with him? There was no one else here besides him and Hui. As long as he was ruthless enough to eliminate the source of the problem, no one would know what had happened. So what if I am? Hui said in a low voice. His figure flashed and landed in front of Lin Feng. He looked down at Lin Feng with a gloomy face. A cold aura covered the sky, and the shining white light covered his eyes again. Pa! Pa! Lin Feng's body was instantly frozen. His consciousness gradually blurred, and all his senses around him turned into rays of light, dimming and disappearing before his eyes. Cha! He turned into an ice sculpture. Damn it! Gritting his teeth, Zhao clenched his fists so tightly that they trembled uncontrollably. He didn't want anyone to see his true emotions. This battle had a greater impact on him than any other battle. On the surface, it looked like he had won the battle, but he knew that from the beginning to the end, he had been led by Lin Feng by the nose. Who was the mouse and who was the cat? He had lost completely. There was nothing to refute. He was indeed injured. Perhaps there were no external injuries, but the injuries to his soul were far more serious than he had imagined. The attack of a holy lord-ranked heavenly soul master. Ho stared at Lin Feng, a deep fear in his eyes. No one knew just how shocked he was. A mere high-level saint-level human was actually able to unleash the attack of a saint lord-level heavenly soul master. And the most terrifying thing was, he didn't die from the backlash. He should have a very powerful astral tool to protect his soul, Zhao thought to himself. It's a pity that I can't let you go. Sighing slightly, Zhao looked at Lin Feng with a changing expression. As a divine envoy of the sanctuary was his first priority. An individual was only second. According to Zhao's personality, if Lin Feng was just an ordinary enemy, he might really keep his promise and let Lin Feng go. However, Lin Feng wasn't an ordinary person. He was originally wanted by the sanctuary, and it would be better to kill him. Moreover, he had killed 3 enforcers and a head enforcer of the sanctuary. This was an unforgivable crime. If Lin Feng wasn't killed, not only would the Aboriginals lose face, but there would also be internal cracks in the sanctuary, and even their beliefs would be affected. In the Aboriginals, the sanctuary was unique. It represented power, enforced justice, and maintained the order of the Aboriginals. There was no room for favoritism. He inherited the Phoenix bloodline and has such strength. This child's aptitude is terrifying. Not to mention the human race. Even in the Aboriginals, he's top-notch. After battle, one would know who was stronger and who was weaker. Zhao looked at Lin Feng with cold eyes. He was deep in thought. I didn't expect that the descendants of the Aboriginals and the human race didn't dilute the Aboriginals' bloodline. Instead, they activated it. Or maybe the combination of strong and weak bloodlines allowed the matriarchal bloodline to display a stronger inheritance power and reappear the matriarchal bloodline. Maybe I'm just overthinking. This is purely luck. Zhao's expression was grave as he thought. He didn't kill Lin Feng because he was very curious about Lin Feng's bloodline. The Aboriginals had a deep understanding of bloodlines because they inherited the bloodline of divine beasts. This was also related to the Aboriginals' weak inheritance power. Among the 3 major races of the human race, the Aboriginals' aptitude was not inferior to the sorcerer race. However, the Aboriginals' inheritance power was far inferior to the sorcerer races. It was even more incomparable to the human race. Therefore, the Aboriginals had been thinking of ways to improve their bloodline. Not only did they want to solve the problem of having few descendants, but they also wanted the next generation of elites to have the strongest bloodline. In fact, very few people knew that this was the reason for the sanctuary of the Aboriginals. Blazing canyon. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The canyon violently shook. Flames rose up in all directions. The flames at the core of the earth went berserk, summoning the wind and summoning the rain in the crack. It was like a natural disaster had arrived, destroying everything. Flames flashed in all colors. The crazy flames swallowed everything and scattered everywhere. However, all of this had nothing to do with the Phoenix woman. She was only sitting cross-legged. The star mark on her forehead shined, forming a fiery red phoenix. It contrasted with the phoenix crown on her hair, creating a magnificent sight. Although her eyes were closed, one could still feel a pure and holy aura. It was so high and unattainable. This temperament was innate. The Phoenix woman clearly had an extraordinary origin. No matter how wild the flames were, they were unable to approach her. In this place, she was like a god, a transcendent existence. And at this time, the Phoenix woman's long eyelashes fluttered. She opened her beautiful eyes, a trace of doubt in them. Ancient Phoenix token? After a slight hesitation, the Phoenix woman didn't hesitate for too long. In almost an instant, a flame-shaped red jade appeared in her hand. On top of it was the mark of a soaring phoenix. Rich flames covered it, as if they wanted to soar into the sky. The Phoenix woman held the red jade and muttered to herself. The phoenix above the red jade seemed to come to life, surging with cries. The Phoenix woman's eyes shined. It really is the ancient Phoenix token. In an instant, accompanied by the cries of the flames, the Phoenix woman's figure shot out from the flames like a phoenix. Wah! She disappeared in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! He galloped away. Ho held his hands behind his back, his eyes bright. His expression was solemn, and he didn't say a word. It was as if he hadn't recovered from the battle just now. Behind him, Lin Feng, who had turned into an ice sculpture, seemed to be connected by an invisible string. He flew with Ho at an extremely fast speed. The journey wasn't too far. Ho was about to head to the ancient region sanctuary in the south. However, what was that sound? Ho was startled. He frowned. No, it's an aura fluctuation. Ho fiercely turned his head. His eyes shined like stars as he looked at Lin Feng. He saw that the frozen ring was flashing with a faint red light. It was as if it were reflecting off something, revealing a unique fire energy. It was truly strange. Oh, Ho was curious. He stopped. You have quite a few secrets. With a sneer, Ho stretched out his right hand and broke through the ice without hesitation. A cold light flashed in his hand, and his eyes flashed. In an instant, Hua! Light flashed, and a flame-shaped red jade appeared in Ho's hand. It was scalding hot, and the image of a phoenix soared above it. This is... Ho was startled, a bit confused. After staring at it for a full second, Ho's complexion changed. Ancient Phoenix token? How could he have the Ancient Phoenix token? Ho stared at Lin Feng in shock. His eyes were filled with shock. As he looked at the Ancient Phoenix token in his hand, he felt that it was burning hot. His right eye hesitated as he clenched his teeth. In an instant, Ho clenched his fists, and an icy cold aura spread out, freezing the flame-like phoenix within the Ancient Phoenix token. Damn it! Ho's complexion was extremely ugly. Pa! The light of the Ancient Phoenix token in the Phoenix woman's hand dimmed. You've got guts. The Phoenix woman's eyes flashed with a cold light. She stopped and closed her eyes. An astonishing and terrifying fiery red aura spread out like a wave. It was like a ring of fire with her body at the center, instantly spreading outwards. Pung! An extremely intense fire element resonated with the ancient region. In the void, it was like a phoenix was soaring in the air. Its resounding cries resonated with the star mark on the Phoenix woman's forehead. Drip, drip, time slowly passed, second by second. Suddenly, Pa, the Phoenix woman's eyes brightened. You think you could deceive everyone, Ho? Besides you, within the sensing range of the Ancient Phoenix token, there is no other non-fire attribute saint. Besides you, who would dare to ignore the Ancient Phoenix token? Whoosh! Like a meteor of fire, the Phoenix woman's figure disappeared in the blink of an eye. This was bad. Ho's expression froze. He clenched his fists. Damn it, I was still discovered. Ho's eyes flashed with hesitation. He looked back at Lin Feng and immediately stopped. With his sensing ability, he could naturally sense the Phoenix woman's existence. They were both at the Saint King level and weren't too far away from each other. Now that the Phoenix woman's aura had firmly locked onto him, he simply couldn't leave. If he left, wouldn't he seem even more guilty? In the end, he couldn't hide. Her strength is only slightly weaker than mine. Ho's expression was icy cold. Her aura is very familiar. It should be, after a slight hesitation, several figures appeared in his mind. After eliminating them one by one, there was only one left. It was a woman as beautiful as a fairy in the mortal world. She had an elegant and calm temperament. Her slightly thin body was abnormally full. She was tall and beautiful, sacred and inviolable. This figure, now, was right in front of him. Hua! A fiery red light broke the ice-cold silence. The Phoenix woman appeared in front of Ho, her star mark shining brightly. Their eyes met. There was a sense of familiarity, as if this was not the first time they had met. Long time no see, Huang Yen. Ho greeted her with a faint smile. Chapter 1190. One ice and one fire, one man and one woman. Qi and Huang Yen. Not only were their temperaments similar, even their strengths were similar. Standing face to face, time seemed to have stopped. How have you been? Huang Yen opened her red lips. Thanks to you. She replied with a smile that didn't look like a smile. I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence. Really? Huang Yan's eyes lit up, glancing at Lin Feng, who had turned into an ice sculpture without any aura, and asked slowly, "Who is he?" Chi's expression was calm. "This is Deity's Hall's matter. It seems that I don't need to explain to eldest young Mississippi. What if I want to know?" Huang Yin asked indifferently. Their eyes met. Both of them had different thoughts. Chi laughed. "Just a mere human, but he killed my Deity's Hall's law enforcer, so he must be severely punished." "Just a mere human?" Huang Yin asked softly, her eyes flashing. "You need to send out the famous third divine envoy?" The atmosphere instantly froze. The air was flowing with fire and water that didn't mix. "I don't need to explain to you." Chi's expression sunk. "Please make way. I need to rush back to Deity's Hall." "What if I say no?" Huang Yan's voice was neither soft nor heavy, but it was like a weight that fell down, as heavy as 1,000 caddies. In an instant, it caused the Ho's eyes to flash, but Huang Yin was slightly stunned as she asked in surprise, "You're injured?" Chi's lips curled into a faint sneer. "It's just an insignificant small injury." Huang Yan's beautiful eyes flashed, and then glanced at Lin Feng. "It's him. It's none of your business." Chi's brows turned cold, seemingly with a little anger. "I'll say it again. Please make way. If you dare to obstruct Deity's Hall's mission, even your father will not give you face. Don't think that I don't dare to touch you because of your noble status." The smell of gunpowder grew, but Huang Yan's expression still didn't change, only saying indifferently, "It seems that, I guess correctly." "So what if it is?" Chi shouted angrily, patting his chest. "How can one not be injured in a battle? At least the one who won is me, not him." Facing Huang Yan's neither soft nor heavy voice, Chi couldn't keep his cool, as an icy aura spread out. "It's very rare." Huang Yin revealed a rare smile. This smile made his heart flutter slightly, and his right eye flickered with light. "Originally, I was uncertain, but now, I think I know." Huang Yin looked at Lin Feng and said in a soft voice, "For a mere human to be able to injure the third divine envoy of Divine Temple, you really aren't simple at all. No wonder you have the ancient phoenix token." "What ancient phoenix token?" Ho's complexion changed. Huang Yin looked at Zhao. "You're very bad at lying." Lin Ming's pale face flushed red. He angrily humphed. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I've never touched the ancient phoenix token." Huang Yin indifferently smiled. "I never said that you touched the ancient phoenix token." His face flushed red. Under the gaze of those exquisite eyes, it was as if everything had been seen through. He was so angry that his teeth chattered. "I don't care what you say. First, I've never seen the ancient phoenix token. Second, my temple must have this person. That's it, humph." After saying that, he waved his hand fiercely, and the surrounding air seemed to be frozen. Zhao didn't even look at Huang Yin and was about to leave. But Zhao, flames instantly descended like a curtain from the heavens. On Huang Yan's forehead, the phoenix star seal flashed brilliantly, bringing with it a sacred and inviolable aura that blocked Zhao's path. "What do you mean?" Zhao's eyes flashed with a cold light. "Hand over the person and the ancient phoenix token." Huang Yan's voice was calm and filled with certainty. "Are you sure?" Zhao was unable to suppress his anger any longer. "If you insist on doing things your own way." Huang Yin floated in the air. The phoenix crown on her head symbolized her noble status. Flames twined around her like dragons, gathering around her body, forming a sacred and powerful aura. Zhao stared at Huang Yin, the look in his eyes fluctuating. He was tangled and hesitant. Should he advance or should he retreat? He was caught in a dilemma. After a long time, "Good. You asked for it." Zhao nodded, a sharp light flashing in his eyes. He looked at Huang Yin, as if he had already made a decision. 5 years ago, I was defeated in the semifinals and had no chance to fight with you. To me, this has always been a regretful matter. In truth, I really want to know who amongst the new generation of powerhouses between you and me is closest to him. Isn't this a good opportunity?" Huang Yan's voice was still calm, but the fighting spirit in her beautiful eyes was already boiling. Thunder stirred up the fire on the ground, and a great battle broke out. A battle between Saint Kings. Zhao and Huang Yin were originally like fire and water. One came from an ordinary background, while the other came from a prominent background. One used his own strength to climb from a law enforcer to a law enforcer, and then from a reserve divine envoy to a divine envoy, to the high and mighty third divine envoy. It could be said that his path was arduous. As for the other, she was the daughter of an ancient god. She was doted on by thousands and had nothing to worry about. After 5 years, they fought again. In the rising star battle of the ancient race, the two newly promoted ancient race powerhouses who were the center of attention seemed to be destined to be enemies on a narrow road. Who was stronger? Hua, a flaming phoenix. Whoosh, a land sealed in ice. The fusion of water and fire enveloped the entire world, as if a symphony was playing. That scene kept appearing in his mind. It was vivid and lifelike, as if it had come to life at this moment. Suddenly, the image shattered into pieces like a mirror. Pa! Lin Feng woke up from a dream and opened his eyes. I'm not dead. After regaining consciousness, Lin Feng felt exhausted and weak. At this moment, he was looking up at the sky. The surrounding sounds were extremely quiet. The sky he looked up at was not a normal color. Instead, it was filled with fiery red rocks. This is ugh. Lin Feng forced himself to sit up, but he still felt that his skin was a little cold. Looking at his hand, there seemed to be some ice shards remaining. His memory recovered bit by bit, and he remembered the previous scene. The battle between him and Zhao. No, it should be a game. He was completely played by Zhao. Even though he used all his strength, he was still captured in the end. After that, he seemed to have been sealed in ice, and even his consciousness and memories were completely lost. What a powerful technique, Lin Feng thought to himself. Zhao was so strong that he felt powerless to resist. This was the true power of a Saint King. But what's going on? Lin Feng opened his arms and looked at his chest. The injury had already healed, and there was no visible wound. He did not know how it healed. The weakness of his body was not because he was seriously injured, but because he had used too much of his life spirit's power. Although he was not injured by using Vermilion Bird's Assault consecutively, the consumption of his life spirit's power was not something that could be recovered in a short time. However, he was still alive and well. He even had power. Pa! Clenching his fist, Lin Feng could feel the existence of his strength. Although the rapid consumption of his life spirit made it impossible for him to have 100% of his strength, it was still more than 80%. And this was only his main body. The strength of his clone had not been consumed. He actually didn't seal my power. He underestimated me. Lin Feng thought to himself, but he only smiled. There was nothing he could do if he underestimated Zhao. His strength was indeed inferior to Zhao's. If Zhao wanted to kill him, there was no difference between his peak state and his weakened state. As this thought arose in his mind, he suddenly felt a sense of relief. He had already disregarded death. This life of his was originally picked up by someone else. This is the godly palace? Lin Feng looked around, his eyes twinkling. It looked rather strange. It was like a huge natural cave. It was fiery red, and the rich fire element covered everything. What puzzled him the most was that there was not a single person here. It was very strange. This is the place where the temple imprisons people? Lin Feng smiled. Since he was here, he might as well take things as they came. Since the temple had arranged for him to be imprisoned in such a place, it was obvious that they were very assured that he would not have a chance to escape. It did not matter. Let's take a look around. Nodding slightly, Lin Feng was rather calm. In any case, he had already walked to a dead end. Even if he walked down another dead end, what harm would there be? In a huge cave, Lin Feng slowly paced in the cave, feeling rather curious. He had never thought that he would be imprisoned in such a place. Step by step, he walked into the depths of the cave, completely relaxing as if he was sightseeing. Escape? He had to be able to escape. He was indeed too weak compared to Zhao. However, the deeper he went, the more surprised he was. This place was very hot. I can't believe I feel hot. Lin Feng was a little shocked. This was not a clone, but the main body of a fire spirit master who cultivated the phoenix bloodline. He actually felt hot. One could imagine how terrifying the temperature here was. As expected of the southern ancient region, one of the hottest regions in the entire Doling world. Lin Feng muttered to himself, his eyes twinkling. The power of nature was not to be underestimated. He had seen this many times. Just from the previous Weapon Master competition, the temperature of the Earth core flame could reach above the saint level. This showed that the strongest flame might not be released by a martial artist. In such a hot region, it was very normal to have the Earth core flame of such intensity. However, it was a little strange. Such a big place, and only I am imprisoned? Lin Feng frowned slightly, feeling a little curious. He closed his eyes, feeling the weakness of his soul power. He was a little dazed, but in an instant, focusing his mind, Lin Feng frowned tightly. With his tenacious willpower, he quickly spread out his aura and sensed everything around him clearly. Pursing his lips, Lin Feng probed one region after another. With his strong sensing ability, he still could not detect any other aura. There were only violent flames. So dense. The flames here are really strong. In the depths, even a fire spirit master at the peak of the saint level might not be able to withstand it. With a thought, Lin Feng opened his eyes. Light flashed in his eyes. He turned his head and looked at the region he sensed. The curiosity in his heart completely suppressed the fear. In fact, there was nothing to be afraid of. If he died, then so be it. Anyway, he would suffer a fate worse than death in the hands of the Divine Hall. Perhaps there was an opportunity? Lin Feng's eyes twinkled. 2 more updates. Chapter 1191. What amazing flames! The further Lin Feng went, the more shocked he became. Just as he had sensed, the density and intensity of the flames in the depths of the cave far exceeded that of the ancient southern region, and they were increasing exponentially. Bang! Bang! The flames of devouring appeared in an instant and devoured the flames hungrily. However, the speed was far from enough. Whoosh! Whoosh! With the protection of the flames of rebirth, Lin Feng moved forward slowly. Every moment, the flames of devouring were constantly improving. The feeling was incomparable, and the speed of improvement was far greater than the power consumed. In other words, as long as he was willing, the flames of devouring could be cultivated endlessly and improved again. 7-star techniques are not the peak, Lin Feng thought to himself. Perhaps comprehending 7-star techniques was enough to reach the requirement of Saint, but that didn't mean that it was the peak. At least, the flames of devouring and flames of rebirth weren't. The flames of devouring have reached the 7th-star technique, which is equivalent to just entering the 70th star technique of the Phoenix realm. There are still 80th and even 90th star techniques above. The same goes for the flames of rebirth. Lin Feng was very clear. The power of flames was far from the peak. Just like strength, in the eyes of ordinary warriors, the saint level was already unattainable and stood at the top of the pyramid. However, when one reached the saint level, they realized that the world above the saint level was vast, and there were also saint kings. In fact, there were also starry sky powerhouses above the saint kings. One would only know the existence of another level after reaching a certain level. He moved forward step by step. After an unknown period of time, he passed through layers of flames, turned, and turned again. It was as if he had come to another world. The surroundings were fiery red, and all the rocks and soil seemed to no longer exist. Only the world of flames was left. The raging flames sprayed everywhere and wrapped around him. It seemed to be the core of the earth as it was extremely hot. Phew, Lin Feng exhaled softly, his eyes glistening. Impressive. I haven't even reached the deepest part, but there's already such a scene. Lin Feng couldn't help but look forward to it. Lin Feng's eyes were like torches as he looked at the land of flames in front of him. What is that? His gaze focused on the red grass that was fluttering in the flames. They were sparkling and translucent. When the flames passed by, they seemed to want to burn the red grass, but they were easily avoided. 2, 3, 4. Lin Feng counted softly. 5. There are actually 5 of these flame grass. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself. Even if he didn't recognize what the flame grass was, he could still feel its tenacious vitality. Furthermore, for it to be able to grow in such a harsh environment, how miraculous must it be? I wonder if it's a wood spirit or a star fruit, Lin Feng muttered. Just like the martial artist paths of the heavenly warriors and heavenly gods, becoming a wood spirit or a star fruit was a fork in the road and a choice for plant life. If he became a wood spirit, he would be like a demonic beast going against the will of the heavens. However, if he became an astral fruit, he would follow the will of the heavens and become a normal great Tao. It was easy to distinguish. Just look at the aura. A wood spirit would possess the aura of vitality very early on, just like it. However, an astral fruit was different. It only possessed the aura of the energy of the heavens and the earth. The fruits it bore would contain great energy. If the astral fruit followed the will of the heavens, it wouldn't have to cultivate on its own. However, it would never have true intelligence. This was the difference. However, it was blocked by the raging flames and couldn't be felt. The aura of the flames here was very powerful. Go! Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he shouted. The devouring flames contained great destructive power. Combined with the energy of the astral origin, it instantly produced a violent, explosive power. This was different from the absorption just now. Previously, he was absorbing, but now he was attacking. The devouring flames madly devoured, forcibly opening a path. As for Lin Feng, he was like a gale sweeping past. With the protection of the rebirth flames, he swept through everything like a whirlwind. Wah! Lin Feng's figure flashed as he floated in midair. At this moment, there were 5 flame grass brimming with energy in his hand. It appeared to be shaped like ordinary grass, only it was slightly larger and its leaves were slightly thicker. However, it contained a powerful fire energy. Clearly, it was no ordinary grass. Among them, there were 2 flame grass with 3 flame grass, and 1 flame grass with 3 flame grass had the most powerful energy. It seems that the more flame grass has, the more powerful and precious the flame grass has. I don't know what astral fruit it is, but it should be above the saint grade. Lin Feng nodded slightly. As a blacksmith, he had crammed some knowledge. This included all kinds of materials and astral fruits. However, this knowledge was limited to materials that were commonly used by cultivators below the saint grade. It was never mentioned by cultivators above the saint grade. Most of them wouldn't be recorded in books because they were very rare. 5 flame grass. At least I gained something. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, his mood was very relaxed. It was as if he had returned to the most primitive time. He didn't need to think or consider anything. He could just explore without any worries. He continued to move deeper. Continue. The flames were getting stronger and stronger. The terrain was getting wider and wider as they went deeper. It was as if they had entered the lowest level of the ancient southern region. It was getting hotter and hotter. I can't take it anymore. Lin Feng sighed and took a step back. The earth core flame here had exceeded his limit. If he continued forward, the devouring flame would consume more energy. The rebirth flame wouldn't be able to withstand it. He would probably be buried in the sea of fire. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He hesitated for a moment. Then a light appeared in his hand. Fire calming pearl. It was a unique treasure taken from the deepest level of the Sparrow King prison formation. Let's give it a try. Lin Feng nodded slowly. He didn't know the function of this fire calming pearl. The only thing he knew was that it could absorb the flames. The absorption speed was terrifying. Saint-level flames. Lin Feng muttered. He looked at the fire calming pearl in his hand. He didn't know if it could really absorb the flames. After all, the flames here were much stronger than the Sparrow King prison. However, his intuition told him that there was no problem. Hiss! The fire-calming pearl absorbed the flames fiercely. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The flames that even his flames of devouring and flames of rebirth could not withstand were completely vulnerable in front of the fire-calming pearl. They were absorbed at an extremely fast speed. Wherever the fire-calming pearl passed, the Earth's core flames disappeared without a trace, and the light became brighter and brighter. So powerful. Lin Feng was shocked. Although he had imagined it before, it was completely different from seeing it with his own eyes. The flames here weren't ordinary at all. It can absorb saint-level flames. This fire-calming pearl. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. It was definitely not an ordinary treasure. With the fire-calming pearl leading the way, Lin Feng sped forward. Everywhere he passed, he was invincible. Wow! Lin Feng looked ahead and saw many flame grass. They stood in the wind and didn't fall. These precious star fruits that couldn't be seen in the outside world were abundant here. In fact, he had already collected many of them. However, they weren't as dense as what he saw now. The flame grass without branches could be seen everywhere. There were more than a dozen flame grass with 2 branches, 3 branches, 4 branches, and so on. There was even a flame grass with 5 branches. Its energy was much stronger than that with 3 branches. The more, the better. Lin Feng smiled. The devouring flame in his hand rose again. His eyes were deep. He wouldn't miss this opportunity. These star fruits were almost certainly saint-level star fruits. Although there were no fruits, the energy contained in these flame grass was extraordinary. Especially the flame grass with 5 branches. Lin Feng held it in his hand and felt a connection with it. He couldn't help but tighten his grip. Whirlwind. Wherever it passed, not a single blade of grass grew. Looking at the harvest in his hand, Lin Feng couldn't help but smile. Then he put all of them into his bag. Well, it's like finding joy in hardship. Lin Feng laughed at himself. He didn't care. He didn't want to give up his life easily until the last moment. After all, he only had one main body. Of course, he could commit suicide. However, could he guarantee that his doppelganger would survive? Moreover, suicide was the act of a coward. It's strange, Lin Feng muttered. It was indescribably strange. He couldn't figure out why the Divine Hall spared his life. He couldn't figure out why they locked him up in this place. Even though he had awakened and recovered his strength, there was no reaction at all. Were they not afraid that he would run away because of his luck? Phew! Lin Feng exhaled softly and collected his thoughts. Forget it. It was useless to think too much. Now, he could only take one step at a time. Wait, what's that? Lin Feng frowned and looked into the distance. As far as his eyes could see, there seemed to be light spots within the flames. Although they were very faint, he could still vaguely see them. He could even vaguely feel a special aura. Lin Feng's curiosity was piqued as he continued forward. Soon, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The light spots he saw just now were slightly bigger. They seemed to be transforming and changing in the flames. It was as if something was bound in them. It was very strange. With a curious gaze, Lin Feng looked directly at the light spots. The fluctuations became more and more intense. After a while, a cracking sound could be heard. It sounded like an eggshell cracking. The color of the light spots gradually changed. Lin Feng widened his eyes and looked at the light spots. There were segments of worm-like things crawling out. They opened their mouths and swallowed the light spots. They were white and soft, flashing with a bright luster. He could vaguely see the color of flames on their bodies. This was silkworm. Lin Feng was stunned. This word appeared in his mind. He couldn't react. The silkworm finished swallowing the light spots in a short while. Its originally small body grew bigger. It was wriggling gently. It was completely unafraid of the flames surrounding it. It seemed to be bathing in the sunlight and enjoying everything. Could it be this is the so-called extreme fire silkworm? Lin Feng was stunned. Chapter 1192. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he stared at the strange, silkworm-like creature in front of him. The extreme fire silkworm, is a very special mutated beast. Strictly speaking, it's actually a type of spiritual being. It lives in the hottest region of the Douling world. Lin Feng's heart couldn't help but beat faster as he recalled Lady Nangong's words and looked at this strange creature. The hottest region. Wasn't this one of the hottest regions? It's a mutated beast, but not a divine beast. It's a type of spiritual being. It's indeed very special. Lin Feng muttered to himself. He stared at the strange silkworm in front of him as his imagination ran wild. Every single one of them had such precise definitions and connections. He felt that Lady Nangong's words matched perfectly. All this time, he had been wondering what kind of existence this extreme fire silkworm was for it to fit this definition. Now, everything was clear now. I'm pretty sure that's it, Lin Feng said softly. The fire calming pearl in his hand flashed again, and the surrounding flames were rapidly absorbed. No matter how powerful the saint-level flames were, they couldn't escape from the fire calming pearl's devouring. The most terrifying thing was that the fire calming pearl didn't react at all after devouring so many powerful flames. Lin Feng carefully approached the extreme fire silkworm, and his eyes flashed slightly. It had a unique aura of life and the energy of heaven and earth. However, it didn't seem to have any intelligence. It was like a newborn mutated beast. Even though it could casually absorb saint-level flames and enjoy it, it didn't have the power it should have. What a strange extreme fire silkworm. Lin Feng gently picked up the white, fat, and shining extreme fire silkworm. It looked like a mutated beast and a spiritual being. However, to him, it felt like a star fruit. It was an existence that followed the will of the heavens and didn't pose any threat. Although he didn't know if it was really an extreme fire silkworm, even if it wasn't, it was definitely a treasure. There was no need to waste it. Soon, Lin Feng put it away and continued forward. With the fire-calming pearl, Lin Feng went deeper and deeper. Screech! The spray of flames was abnormally terrifying and had long since exceeded the scope of a saint. Lin Feng's expression was grave, and he was rather shaken. If it weren't for the fire-setting pearl protecting him, he wouldn't have been able to enter such a terrifying area. He had long since exceeded the limits of his strength. Although it wasn't as powerful as the hoe at that time, it wasn't far off. Nature is truly miraculous. Not only can the Douling world withstand the power of a holy king, it also possesses the power of nature of a holy king. The flames here have already surpassed the peak of the saint level. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. They moved forward slowly. Their speed was not fast. After all, no matter how fast the fire-suppressing pearl's devouring speed was, it still needed time. If the fire-setting pearl fails, I'm afraid I'll immediately be burned by the raging flames and die without a burial place. Lin Feng smiled, yet he remained composed. If it was any other time, he would definitely not take such a risk and risk his life, but it didn't matter now. Only when there was danger would there be an opportunity. Since he was already in a hopeless situation, he might as well give it a try. Perhaps he could find a way out of this hopeless situation. That's strange. After entering this place, the flame grass is actually very rare. Moreover, the 5-branch grass seems to be the most common. There aren't any 6-branch grass or 7-branch grass. On the contrary, I've collected quite a few extreme fire silkworms. After pondering for a while, Lin Feng was secretly curious. Every inch of the environment here, no matter how inconspicuous, might be of great use to him. As they went deeper and deeper, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He had already lost his sense of aura. However, the flames here were so strong that he couldn't sense his aura at all. I wonder what's in the deepest part of this place. Lin Feng was very curious. He kept moving forward with an inexplicable sense of anticipation in his heart. Southern Ancient Region, Godly Palace. Puffed. Fresh blood spurted out as he collapsed in the main hall. His face was pale, and his body was covered in wounds. It was obvious that he had suffered extremely serious injuries. Even the eye patch on his left eye had disappeared. It was a very terrifying eye. Although it was tightly shut, it was completely different from his right eye. It was as if a demon lived in it. It was horrifying. Third Divine Envoy, oh my God. In the main hall, the law enforcers looked at the scene in front of them in shock. They were a little stunned. How could they not know about the reputation of the Third Divine Envoy? However, they had never seen him so severely injured. It was as if he had just gone through a fierce battle of life and death. Divine Envoy, one of the law enforcers, stepped forward hesitantly. However, in an instant, scram, Chi suddenly opened his eyes and shouted. A terrifying airflow filled the entire main hall, as if everything was frozen. The law enforcer's face turned pale, and his body trembled. He hurriedly apologized. Yes, Divine Envoy. The law enforcer bowed his head in shock and retreated in panic. The other law enforcers around him were even more stunned. I told you to scram. Didn't you hear me? With a thunderous roar, Chi's left eye, which had been tightly shut all this time, opened completely. A dark brown light shone from it, as if an azura had descended to the world. A terrifying and bizarre aura accompanied the cold aura, instantly creating an apocalyptic horror. Crackle, crackle. The entire main hall seemed to have been frozen. All the law enforcers were terrified and aghast. It was as if they saw a demon emerging from Chi's head. When the dark brown eyes swept past them, their hair stood on end and they couldn't even make a sound. Get out of here! The only law enforcer shouted. Cold sweat dripped from his forehead and his chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. In an instant, as if awakening everyone, they quickly retreated. The huge main hall was suddenly empty, and only Chi was left. He was so angry that his eyes were about to burst. Huang Yin. Chi roared furiously. The battle appeared in his mind, and he was extremely angry. He had retreated. He was forced to retreat by Huang Yin, not because his strength was inferior to Huang Yin. Even if his life spirit was injured by Lin Feng, his strength and fighting ability were superior to Huang Yin. Even if the fire element here was so rich and Huang Yin had the advantage, but Chi was still confident that he would win. However, he had lost. Bitch, you actually risked your life for a mere human. Chi clenched his fists and felt indignant. In the face of Huang Yin's attack, he had to give way. Even if he had more than 80% chance of killing Huang Yin, what about the remaining 20%? Moreover, even if he killed Huang Yin, what would he get? He would be seriously injured, at least more than 10 years of recuperation. Not to mention, Huang Yin had an amazing background, one of the 7 strongest ancient gods of the ancient race. The ancient race was already sparsely populated, and Huang Yin was even more talented. If he killed Huang Yin, no matter what the reason was, he was afraid that he would get into big trouble. Damn it, Chi's face was ugly, and blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. If I knew this would happen, I would have ignored everything and killed that brat directly. Chi regretted it. When he thought about how Lin Feng was now protected by Huang Yin, and how he had to return to the Ancient Phoenix clan with the Ancient Phoenix token, he felt a headache coming on. Things had gone out of his control. Along the way, although Lin Feng's speed was slow, the fire-stabilizing pearl had overflowed. Where else could one find such a flame to absorb such energy? Even in the Sparrow King prison, the fire-stabilizing pearl could not be compared to this. This was no longer a saint-level flame, nor a star sector-level flame, but a true saint-level flame. In this hottest area, it was absorbing the top-level natural energy of the Douling world. I wonder what this fire-stabilizing pearl is. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he became more and more surprised. It was not only absorbing saint-level flames, but it was also absorbing saint-level flames. It was like a bottomless pit, far beyond his knowledge. Looking at the fire-stabilizing pearl in his hand, Lin Feng's eyes were full of curiosity. Lin Feng was surprised. It seems there are some changes. Holding the fire-stabilizing pearl in his hand, his senses became deeper. Not only that, even the color of the fire-stabilizing pearl became darker. It was like filling a water tank with water, and it was getting more and more overflowing. Oh! Lin Feng's eyes flickered, and he was deep in thought. The absorption of the flames is not useless. With some doubts, Lin Feng continued to move forward. The secrets of the fire-stabilizing pearl still needed to be tested. Deeper and deeper, in his senses, there seemed to be a powerful existence approaching. Lin Feng covered his chest with his hand, and a huge phoenix appeared in his mind inexplicably, and its high-pitched cry filled his mind. His eyes were full of flames, and that feeling was getting closer and closer, as if he could touch it. There must be a secret. It must be in the deepest part of this sea of fire. Phoenix! Lin Feng's heart trembled as he carefully advanced. He did not dare to be careless. He knew very well that in this situation, if he was not careful, his soul would be destroyed. However, he did not want to retreat now that he had come this far. Wah! Wah! The fire-stabilizing pearl glowed, and the flames followed him like a shadow. With every step he took, the fire-stabilizing pearl absorbed more flames. The absorption speed slowed down, but it was because the quality of the flames was getting higher and higher. Lin Feng pursed his lips and moved forward cautiously. At this point, it was almost a different world with every step, because he could not see what was in front of him. The intensity of the flames here was far beyond what he could bear. Slowly, as if he had walked to the deepest part. Lin Feng was slightly stunned. In his senses, the energy of the flames in front of him seemed to have reached its peak. It was so powerful, but it had a very calm and faint feeling, different from other flames. It was a kind of calmness like a lake. Even though it was deep in the sea, it was not like the raging waves just now. It was as if it had no attack power at all. Lin Feng was slightly puzzled and stepped forward. As the fire-stabilizing pearl continued to absorb, it opened up a path, and everything in front of him suddenly became clear. Huh! Lin Feng widened his eyes and looked in front of him in disbelief. As far as his eyes could see, there was a beautiful woman floating in the flames with her eyes closed. Her peerless face had an indescribable temperament. She had beautiful eyebrows and a beautiful head. She was graceful and charming, and her full breasts were enough to make one's heart beat wildly. She was actually completely naked. Lin Feng took in a deep breath. He was shocked. Before he could recover, the fire-stabilizing pearl glowed again, and the strong suction force like a black hole rose again. Oh no! Lin Feng's expression changed. Chapter 1193. Pung. The power of the setting fire pearl was unleashed. Whether it was a raging flame or a calm flame, it was still a flame in the end. To the setting fire pearl, it was like nourishment and food. Once activated, it could not be stopped. Lin Feng's face changed. He could feel the intense absorption of the flame, but he could not change it in time. He could not control it either. The power of the setting fire pearl was not something he could control. Wah! The flames lit up the entire cave. Following the absorption of the flame, the balance of the calm lake was broken. The flame that was originally wrapped around the beauty was instantly snatched away by the setting fire pearl. It was like a lake being drained dry. At this moment, Lin Feng truly felt a qi. It was an extremely weak qi, as if she was on her last breath. Oh no! Lin Feng's face was extremely ugly. Even if he didn't understand, he could feel that this beautiful woman was healing her wounds. But it was accidentally destroyed by him. That pale face seemed to be heavily injured. Without the support of the flame, the beauty seemed to have lost her life. She lost the strength to bear the weight and fell from the sky. At this moment, who cared about the difference between men and women? Lin Feng's face changed. He immediately jumped up and caught the beauty. Feeling the full body, warm and fragrant, he did not feel the least bit restless. There was only worry and guilt. Frowning, Lin Feng landed on the ground with a worried expression. She is also a phoenix constellation? Lin Feng noticed the star imprint on the beauty's forehead. It had a dim light. It was exactly the same as him. No, there was still a slight difference. The phoenix star imprint on his forehead felt more majestic, full of yang qi. But the phoenix on the beauty's forehead leaned towards feminine, with a bit of pride in beauty. Looking at the star imprint on her forehead, Lin Feng could not help but be attracted. What a strange feeling. Maybe the difference in the star imprint is due to gender. Lin Feng said softly, then suddenly shook his head, his face slightly serious. It's not the time to think about this. His expression became serious as he looked at the beautiful phoenix woman in his arms. Even if she was naked, her perfect body was like a treasure bestowed by the heavens. However, at this moment, he didn't feel the slightest bit of charm in his heart. There was only deep anxiety, and he didn't know what to do. He had really gotten into trouble. Her aura was weak. If he didn't save her, he was afraid that this beautiful phoenix woman in his arms would definitely die. What should I do? Lin Feng frowned deeply and bit his lips lightly. However, he had no choice but to give it a try. He couldn't care less right now. My apologies. With his right hand pressed against the phoenix woman's plump chest, Lin Feng's face turned solemn as he carefully inserted the flame of rebirth that carried the aura of star source energy into her body. Since they were cultivating from the same root, perhaps he could find a source. Lin Feng knew that the probability was very low, but he didn't have any good ideas right now. When the flame of rebirth entered her body, it carried a little aura. However, just as it entered her body, it was instantly engulfed by a tyrannical power. Puff! Lin Feng's chest tightened, and his face turned pale. Failure! What a powerful strength! Lin Feng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, deeply shocked. Even if the phoenix woman's aura was completely gone, the automatic defense in her body was still not something he could contend against. If she hadn't been defending but attacking, he would have died long ago. She was very strong. Sacred master level. Lin Feng instantly concluded. I wonder who is stronger, her or Qi. This thought appeared in his mind, but it instantly disappeared. Lin Feng looked at the phoenix woman with extreme urgency. His intuition told him that her life was constantly slipping away and she would die soon. Although he wasn't the murderer, he was more like the murderer because he was the one who caused all of this. What to do? What should he do? Lin Feng bit his lips until they bled. His brows were tightly knitted as he stared at the star seal on the phoenix woman's forehead. The star seal was dimming. Suddenly, he couldn't care about anything else. He cut his wrist with his hand, and blood immediately gushed out like spring water, dripping onto the star seal on the phoenix woman's forehead. Tap, tap, tap. The moment the blood dripped onto the star seal started to shine brightly. That's it. Lin Feng's eyes lit up, and he was pleasantly surprised. He already had a clue. He was just treating her randomly. This was the southern ancient region, the territory of the ancient race. This phoenix woman was obviously a member of the ancient race, and the ancient race he knew cultivated by inheriting the blood of divine beasts. This was the key point. Since she couldn't absorb his power, he had to see if his blood would work. It seemed that it would work. Feeling the energy in his body flowing away, Lin Feng, who was already weak, suddenly felt dizzy. However, since he had already started, he wouldn't stop. Even if he lost all his blood, he would have no regrets. He was the one who caused this disaster, so he should bear it. Drip, drip. Time seemed to have turned into blood and entered the phoenix woman's body. Subtle changes occurred. What Lin Feng didn't see was that the phoenix woman's chest was also flickering with faint starlight, including the star seal on her forehead. That was a source of power and also some kind of compatibility. However, he was too weak to notice it. In fact, Lin Feng wouldn't stare at her chest. It was too impolite. After an unknown amount of time, a weak moan sounded from the phoenix woman's mouth. It immediately woke Lin Feng up. His pale face looked at the beautiful face, and he was pleasantly surprised. At this moment, he finally felt that the phoenix woman's aura was showing signs of recovery. Although it was still extremely weak, it was as if she had just crossed the line of death. Her long eyelashes fluttered. Lin Feng looked at the pair of beautiful eyes that were slowly opening. Indescribable joy surged into his heart. Even though he had lost most of his blood and his power, he didn't regret it. As long as he could redeem his mistake and save her, everything would be worth it. Whoosh! Her beautiful eyes were flawless. Their eyes met, and the star seals on her forehead resonated with each other, shining brightly. In front of his chest, there was a similar feeling of compatibility, as if some kind of power was attracting each other. "You're awake," Lin Feng said happily. However, just as he opened his mouth, he was instantly blocked. Her soft lips were like the sweetest candy in the world, and her hot breath completely melted him. Opening his eyes wide, Lin Feng didn't know what was going on, but the star seal on his forehead was already shining brightly. His chest was blocked, as if some kind of power was about to break out of it. Feeling that sweet taste, it was as if he had fallen into heaven. What was going on? A soft and gentle voice sounded beside his ear, making him feel limp and numb. He felt a burning body enter his embrace, and it was as if something was affecting everything in the unseen world. It was as if two phoenixes were leaning against each other, and he was completely in a daze. Unknowingly, he had already fallen. He didn't have the strength to push her away. It was an unknown power that was compatible with each other. Feeling the hot breath, the clothes on his plump body had already been taken off. A man and a woman hugging each other tightly. Lin Feng felt as if he had fallen into a dream. The extreme blood loss made him lose all his strength. The star seals on his forehead were shining, and the compatibility between his chest and the universe. He seemed to see two phoenixes intertwining with each other. They were deeply compatible, pleasing each other's temperature. It was endless, long, and deep. However, it was so beautiful. His heart seemed to have found the shore. Immersed in that moment, it seemed to have entered his body, and he saw the soaring phoenix crying loudly. In the phoenix natal plate, the yang natal plate was shining brightly, mixed with the power of the other 5 natal plates. He vaguely felt that the unknown natal plate of the yin natal plate was also full of vitality. Was it an illusion? He didn't know. Lin Feng didn't even know what he was doing and where he was at the moment. He had already put life and death out of his mind. His heart was relaxed, but he didn't resist. In fact, he couldn't resist at all. With his current strength, he was like a speck of dust in this world. He could see how big the world was, but he couldn't change anything. He didn't know how long had passed. It was very short, but also very long. It felt like a moment, but also like a century. Oh! Lin Feng slowly opened his eyes. He felt a little dazzling, but he could see the light again. Whoosh! Lin Feng straightened his body and sat up. He looked around. It was a hot area, but there was no flame. This place was... Lin Feng was surprised. He couldn't react. Where was he? Inexplicably, he stood up straight and looked at the vast and boundless area. The memories in his mind were somewhat unclear. Had he returned to the ancient southern region? It was like a dream. Even the time he spent in the flame cave was like a dream. Spreading his hands, Lin Feng looked dejected. What was going on? Was it really a dream just now? There was a wisp of fragrance left in his body. The deeply engraved aura was wandering around his body, but only memories were left. He could touch everything around him. He had really returned to the ancient southern region. There was no Ho and the Phoenix Lady. There was only this hot aura and a vast area. It was as if nothing had happened. Lin Feng pursed his lips. His mind was in a mess. After a long time, Lin Feng let out a long breath. He clenched his fists and regained his spirit. However, it was useless to think about it now. What had happened had happened. What hadn't happened had also not happened. To him, there was no need to think so much. He just had to follow his feelings. His purpose in coming to the ancient southern region had never changed. He was going to the ancient Phoenix clan. Whoosh! Lin Feng's silhouette slowly disappeared from sight. However, he didn't see that in the sky above, a lady in red scale armor was silently watching him. Her beautiful eyes flickered with a hint of complicated emotions. That beautiful face seemed to have lost some of its unattainable temperament. Instead, it seemed to have gained the charm of the human world. For the next 2 months, the Douling world will end after I finish writing this volume. It will be around 3 in the afternoon and 9 in the evening. Xiao Xiao has already started writing the new book. However, I don't know if I should continue writing the Starry Sky world. The length is probably similar to the Douling world, the same 4 million words. It will probably be 89 million words. Xiao Xiao has been hesitating for a whole month. Sigh. Perhaps there will be a conclusion when the Douling world ends. That you're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.